Okay, there's a lot of frivolity in the room, so I'm just going to call this meeting to order and welcome to our City Council study session on Tuesday, January 14th. Thank you for being here, everybody in the room. If I could have the clerk please do roll call, please.
Mayor Karen Howe.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Amy Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Kaylee Clark.
Oh, shoot. Here.
Councilmember Pamela Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Kent Treen.
Present.
Councilmember Sid Gupta.
Here.
Councilmember Roshino Farrell.
Here.
Thank you for that. And so I'd like everybody to please join me as we do a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, liberty
and justice for all. There we go. Okay. So I don't know who's got the land acknowledgement handy, but if you could raise your hand. Oh, Sid does. Thank you.
We acknowledge that we are in the indigenous land of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Thank you. And let's move forward to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So now we'll move right into our first topic of the evening, which is interviews for boards and commissions. So we have Planning Commission, Sustainability, Parks and Rec, Human Services, and the Arts Commission. I believe we're going to start with the Arts Commission because that's the way that I kind of have this order. Okay, we'll do Planning Commission first. Before we kick off, what I'd like to do is just check with council and see if this works for everybody. I was kind of thinking maybe 2 minutes per person, in which case they would be able to answer their question and introduce themselves. Everybody's profile, letters, interview responses, so good and powerful, and I think the public deserves an opportunity to hear from the folks that are in the room and the ones that will appear via Zoom, because it's a testament actually as to the wonderful crop of volunteers that we have access to here in Sammamish, which just makes me extremely proud. Does that sound good, or would you like to amend that idea?
We're good.
Are we good with 2 minutes per person? Okay.
Mayor Howe, they were given instructions that they would have 5 minutes, but I just don't know if they had it prepared. I just want to be sure. But you can. We always told them it was subject to change, but just they were told 5, so I just want to be sure that that's okay. But
Well, there's a lot of people to get through. But if they were told 5, I'm thinking 5. If you can keep it shorter than your life story in 5 minutes. It's an opportunity to see if there's value in brevity. But if you were told 5, I'm okay with that. Are we all good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So 5 minutes per person. I think I'll start at this end and ask Councilmember Stu, would you be willing to read the first question off once we get our first contestant up for planning? And so for right now, if we could have John Beckman, please come to the microphone, and you've got your 5 minutes.
3.
All right, John's up in the ante already. Welcome, John. Thank you for being here. The question is, why are you interested in serving on the Planning Commission?
Thank you. Mayor Howe, council members, thank you for the opportunity to serve on the Planning Commission the last 2.5 years. My wife and I and 2 kids have resided in Sammamish for the past 35 years. I also lived in Sammamish as the last resident park manager at Pine Lake in 1980-81. So I've seen the changes to our community over 45 years. Just one small example of the change. In 1980, the only store up here was Sadler's. Gus the cat slept in front of the meat locker. There was a hitching post out front. but a little bit's changed since then. Professionally, I've worked in local government for over 35 years. I was fortunate to have a breadth of experience in my career, including senior management positions in parks, planning, community development, and as the executive director of the City Gov Alliance. The Alliance is a local government interlocal agency of which the City of Sammamish is a founding member. While the services provided by our local government are not front of mind as we go about our daily routines, the expectations for service delivery are absolute, whether it's that the stoplights work, parks are clean, someone will respond to your 911 call 24/7, 365 days a year, and they won't charge you, or has a question about permits. The expectations are the same. So given my background in local government and my time on the Planning Commission, I have a personal interest in and now know how important the city's role is in addressing the many needs and maturation of our community. Looking back at my time on the Commission, the work has been rewarding, informative, and sometimes humbling. The comp plan update has been a lot of work, a lot of late meetings, and a lot of reading. I want to thank my fellow Commission members and staff. The staff and consultant preparation work with the Commission has been excellent. The Commission's discussions and questions have been insightful and productive, and we don't always agree. But our interactions are respectful and consensus is usually the outcome. Although the Council has adopted the comprehensive plan, this gets directly to the question, there's still much work ahead, and I'm interested in pursuing that work. The comp plan still must be approved by the state, King County, and Puget Sound Regional Council, and hopefully without any required changes. In our immediate future, we'll be looking at possible amendments to the town center plan. It was SEPA noticed on January 8th. And further work on the Transportation Master Plan. And regarding the TMP, I'm particularly interested in seeing the details on the neighborhood plan elements. The comprehensive plan also provides an opportunity to develop sub-area plans for our other commercial areas and explore possibilities for neighborhood centers. But in the end, the most important work of the Planning Commission is that we diligently work to understand and to the best of our ability represent the interests and concerns of the residents of Sammamish while meeting the city's legal and ethical obligations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jason Ritchie.
Thank you for the opportunity. I submitted my name for the Planning Commission when I believe there was nobody else signed up for this. Having reviewed John's CV, I would wholeheartedly endorse John for another term, a full term on the Planning Commission, if that suits the council's needs, and I'll look forward for the next opportunity that presents itself so I can do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. Well, thank you for folks that applied. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to step up again. And at this point, we should take a look at doing a vote for this role. So does everybody have their ballot? Okay, please. Yep.
Given that there's one person, could we just make a motion? Is that in order? Save a little time.
You know, we could, but I think we actually have to mark, as long as it's really clear that it's unanimous, that there's no misunderstanding on what that is. Because I thought we actually had to have it really clear about who voted for who.
Yeah, well, we can do a yeas and nays, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just to save a couple of steps, if that's okay.
It's fine with me. So, is there a motion?
I move that we appoint John Bachman to the Planning Commission.
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, you are approved and back in the saddle again. Thank you. All right, let's move right along then to Sustainability? Great. And I would really love it, Sid, if you would be willing, the person to read the question. We're going to have Brooke, Christy, Patricia, Vandana. She wrote in a statement. Pam, Mizzen, and is there anybody else that's online? Or is everybody here?
My apologies, Mayor Howe. We are apparently having audio difficulties on the Zoom.
So we have people on Zoom that can't, it doesn't function for them?
We have one applicant that will be joining online, and the other applicants for the Sustainability Commission are in person.
Okay,
And the other emailed the response.
Okay, can I have the name of the person that is on Zoom?
Patricia Johnson.
Okay, gotcha, thank you. Okay, so let's do the best we can, and I'm delighted that folks were able to be here in person. So if Brooke Hanson would mind stepping up first, and if you wouldn't mind just reading that question. Thank you.
What topics would you like to see the Sustainability Commission work on during your tenure if you are appointed?
Okay, my name is Brooke Hanson. I'm going to introduce myself really fast. I think I can make it in 2 minutes. Okay, yeah, I'm delighted to be here this evening and to be able to apply to the Sustainability Commission, which I understand is one of the newer commissions, possibly the newest. Yeah. I did go through all of the meeting minutes from last year, even though they're brief, and tried to understand what had been happening in the Sustainability Commission. So I'd just like to say my family and I moved to Sammamish almost 5 years ago now, right at the first week of the pandemic. And it was a hard landing. We came from Munich, Germany. And so we had all of our stuff on the boat, and it was a little bit uncertain. But what I can tell you is that I really appreciated the nature that was here in the area, and being able to go for long walks during that pandemic period, which we wouldn't have been able to do where we came from. We would have been stuck in an apartment building. I can also say that I have 2 young children, Generation Alpha children. One of them was born here. He's not even 2, and that's part of my motivation to be here on the Sustainability Commission, obviously, you know, for future generations. So I would like to focus on a couple of areas of the climate action plan, because I looked at those. So we have transportation and land use, natural resources, water, waste, and resiliency. And just kind of some of the things that I noticed after having been in Europe for 20 years in 2 different countries. I know that the whole infrastructure and the funding, et cetera, is different here, but I think that we could look and learn about how things are done in other places. One major thing is transportation, and there I'd like to hit 2 things. One is sustainability, and the other one is equity. A couple of years ago, we hosted an exchange student from a European country, and she went to Skyline High School, and she found it hard to get around when she was used to being able to get around on her own, no problem, you know, without any parents or anything. So yeah, I do believe that we could improve the public transportation somewhat. There are opportunities there. I looked up how long it would take to get here by bus. I live in Klahani. For example, from the Klahani UFC, I'd have to walk 27 minutes to get to the bus, and that's just to get to the bus. And then I downloaded the King County app. What is it? What is the app? The bus? Yeah, the Metrobus app. And then I thought about booking a ride, but my ride was gone before I could even get there. And I understand there's 3 buses and they're all volunteer. So I think that could be improved, and also for low-income people who don't have cars. Yeah, my family, we have 1 car at the moment, the whole time since we've been here at the pandemic, and it takes a lot of coordination, you know. So I would like there to be more opportunities, more alternatives there. And the other thing that I looked at was waste. In other countries, the recycling is, for example, much more developed, and it's much more clear what things you can recycle and what you can't, and what do you do with the things that you can't recycle. Yeah, so I think that possibly there could be a little bit more proactive education there for citizens about what they could do in terms of recycling, and also in general other ways to save energy and be more sustainable. So that's my statement today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And if we could have Christy Santo Domingo, please. If I massacred the name.
Hello, so my name is Christy Santo Domingo. My husband is Filipino, which is where I get my last name. And I'm a teacher, so I plan to the end of the 5 minutes, sorry. Sorry, I'll try to be brief. But anyway, my name is Christy Santo Domingo, and I live in Klahani with my family. My 2 boys go to Skyline High School, and I am a teacher for the Issaquah School District at Pacific Cascade Middle School. Thank you so much to the City Council for putting sustainability as a focus for the city. I want to be part of this commission because I've been teaching climate change and sustainability practices for more than 20 years, and I've seen a big change in my students over that time, from interest and curiosity to now apathy and even despair. And so now that my children are in high school, I feel like I have more time to reach outside the classroom walls and try to get community to act. So let's see, just a little bit about my background with community outreach. Currently, I'm the Green Team Advisor at my school, and this year we are implementing composting for the first time in many years. We have 600 students and staff who are composting this year every single day, saving 80 pounds of trash from going into the landfill. It takes great effort on the part of the students. They're awesome. They're creating technology tools to teach the students what goes in which bin. And they are creating posters. They are organizing more than 50 volunteers to compost. And while doing that, they are gaining leadership skills and friendships and building community. So this could be fun, and it generates hope. So what topics would I love to see the commission do? I've been able to attend a few meetings, 3 meetings, and I have looked over the climate action plan. From what I see, they're focusing on this coming year on energy conservation, greenhouse gas reduction and transportation, as was just mentioned, water conservation and landscaping, and organic waste diversion. All of those things I feel are very important, and I feel like my background in explaining science concepts in an easily accessible way, and creating welcoming communities can help that outreach. In addition to that, I am a big fan of the Sammamish Climate Challenge. I know they've had a little bit of trouble getting signups, but I actually use that in my classroom. So, for example, this past week, I paused science instruction to talk to the students about how they were feeling about the fires they're observing on their social media. And it gives them hope to look at that website and remind ourselves of what we're already doing. And we discuss things that they can be doing at home. So like we use reusable water bottles, we're composting, we're gardening, we are conserving our water, and that many of them are taking the bus, and I know it's been a discussion to increase that. And so another thing is I am a big fan of community outreach. Just this past weekend, I was pulling blackberry bushes out at the Parks and Rec Evans Creek Preserve. It was so much fun. I was there with like 30 students, there's 30 kids from the Indian American Community Services group and Skyline High School, Honor Society kids. And I just was imagining all the community outreach we could be doing to bring in those communities. So finally, I believe the Sustainability Commission offers the reminder to community in order to act. And I feel that my experience teaching science concepts in an accessible way can help that. So thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. And thank you very much. No, you're good. So the next person up would be Patricia Johnson. Did we find a way to accommodate her?
Yes. We have audio again, and I'm promoting her now.
That's fabulous. Thank you thank you. Do you know if Patricia was able to hear the instructions? Let's check.
She's on now, and we did email I did email her.
Okay.
And she is on now. Hi, Patricia. It looks like you may be muted.
All right. right. I think you can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay. I've been trying to get on both my computer and my phone. I thought it was me because I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear for a bit, so I switched. So hopefully this is okay. I'm on my phone now. So.
Yeah, we can hear you just great, Patricia. So thank you for fighting your way through. And so Sid's going to read the question to you, and you do have 5 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
What topics would you like to see the Sustainability Commission work on during your tenure if you are appointed?
Okay, so in light of the most recent, first of all, I am Patricia Johnson. I have lived in Sammamish off and on for many years. My daughter was one of the first graduating classes of Skyline High School. At the time, we lived in the Beaver Lake area, and she went to Skyline as well as Issaquah High. Had another daughter who attended Issaquah High School. We left and moved to Atlanta, where she graduated from high school there, but they both came back here and went to school. One went to the University of Washington, one went to Wazoo, so I had the purple and the reds all in the same household. And but I've always come back whenever I have come back to this area because I absolutely enjoy living in Sammamish and have for since the early 90s. When I requested to be a part of this committee, one of the reasons I think was when the most recent storm sort of led me there to thinking about it and thinking about how I could help to ensure that as this area grows and the areas that we see, that we are taking into account the necessary requirements to sustain the environment, not that we're creating with all this growth. So that's probably what I would say I look at. I actually joined the PSE Flex program so that I myself can consider the type of energy that I'm using in my personal household to help minimize the negative impacts of the climate change that we're currently experiencing. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yes, Patricia, it does. Thank you so much for participating. Thanks. Now, Vandana actually sent in a response, but I don't know if council has had an opportunity to read it. So can I get kind of a thumbs up that everybody had a chance to take a look at that statement? In brief, it's quite long. Yeah, she goes into climate change and medication and adaptation, why it matters, key actions, waste management and circular economy, why it matters, key actions. And again, she's enthusiastic about being green, reducing our carbon footprint. Would like to see the board focus on initiatives that address environmental protection, social equity, and economic development. She's responding in part because of what she's seen through climate change impacts in communities with extreme weather events and like the wildfires that are happening now in LA. In terms of waste management, and why she's worried about it, improper waste disposal contributes to pollution, resource depletion, and greenhouse gas emissions. Key actions for her would be promote policies to reduce single-use plastics, encourage sustainable packaging, partner with local businesses to adopt circular economic practices such as upcycling or waste-to-resource initiatives. Sustainable land use and biodiversity, for her, why it matters is that these decisions have a huge impact on ecosystems and community well-being, promote sustainable urban planning practices that prioritize walkability, mixed-use development, and green infrastructure, encourage community gardening and urban farming to support local food systems and biodiversity. And in terms of education, which is her fourth point, and advocacy and behavioral change, obviously public awareness and engagement are crucial to the success of sustainability initiatives. So key actions for her would be launching campaigns to educate the public about sustainability practices such as energy conservation, waste reduction, and water use, implement programs to reduce wastewater such as rainwater harvesting and systems, and land and xeriscaping. Oh, wow, I don't know what that word is, in landscaping, but I have a feeling it's getting plants that don't need water. Collaborate with schools to integrate sustainability into curricula, which it sounds like some folks are already doing, and student-led projects. So I just wanted to quickly give that overview because that gives her a, not as good a voice, but a voice in the room. So with that, we will now move to Pam Miller.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you for tonight, and especially for those that I've had a chance to work with over the last year. I am currently a commissioner, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about the city. I've learned a lot about how government works. We've done quite a bit of work, I think, in terms of pulling the team together and deciding what we think we can do to support what the city and council has set forward for the next few years to meet our goals. Personally, I come from a background of technology, and I've been doing communications, marketing, and PR for the last 40 years. I've also lived in Sammamish for the last 40 years. So like some of you have seen an awful lot of change. I remember how exciting it was when we got the Safeway and the QFC, and that was pretty exciting back then. But I've also seen the downside of our growth in terms of just land use at both, and I'll say it, at a city level, it gets a little overzealous. I feel like a little overzealous at times because it doesn't take into account some of our wastewater, which I've seen some of that. I hope that it has a chance. Excuse me, I am getting over a terrible cold. So taking into account land use, water management, what I want the citizens to do, if we can't, all we can do is just encourage people to get on board with some of the programs that we've outlined. So what we want to do is encourage better use of how we garden, drought-resistant plants. I'm so sorry, you guys. Drought-resistant plants, better water usage, less use of fertilizer. And then also on the transportation side, we've had some great discussions. And then how we do with transportation in terms of using some of the Metro Flex programs, which are great. We just need to encourage people to use them more. But I think in the next phase of this program, we want to get people, we have to convince people and encourage them to start adapting some of these programs. There's a lot of people that want to do the right thing. I don't think they know how, and so we need to educate them. And I am about to go sneeze again, so I'm going to excuse myself. I am so sorry.
Thank you, Pam.
Sorry.
And next up, we have Mizan Rashid.
Thank you. Yeah, when I applied or I do the candidate, I did not know there were so many good candidates. So I thought that, maybe these positions will not be filled. That's what I am interested. My name is Mizan Rashid. I am a water resources and environmental engineer. I did my master's and PhD from Washington State University. And in professional life, I have been a corporate vice president for one of the largest infrastructure sustainability firm in the U.S. is AECOM. In 2019, I started a small business mainly to do sustainability practice as well as to grow young engineers for their career. So I have been doing that. I live in Sammamish. I moved to Sammamish last year. I have been living in East Side, Redmond since the mid-90s. And my daughter went to East Lake, so I used to come Sammamish a lot, okay? So that is my professional life. And then the reason I'm interested is that that's what I do. I'm doing green infrastructure design for city of Seattle right now. For many of their stormwater system. I'm doing, for King County, their CSO plan that is under consent decree with EPA. So I am helping them to, compliance with EPA regulations in a sustainable way. And we do climate adaptation and things like that. So I felt that could be, I can contribute because my children are in college right now. So I have, besides running my own business, mentoring my engineers, I have some time that I can give. It is time to give back to the community that who contributed so much for my development. In social work, I have been a board member for a community organization in Redmond with 500 members, and I have been working with the city of Redmond for organics recycling and reducing waste and things like that. So that is another area that I can probably contribute. The biggest area that I have taken a look at the plan that that city has. The biggest area that I can probably contribute is grant. Looking for grant, researching, writing for grant, and doing collaboration with different organizations. That we cannot do ourselves everything, but we need to collaborate. So how we can bring the collaboration, how we can bring the available funding for the city for doing the projects. So that probably one of the, because I write proposals every other day, grant and things like that. So that skill set, if I can use it for my city, I feel that will be very helpful. In terms of sustainability, I also need to add at some point the resiliency to it. That I'm saying I was, in East Side for about 30 years, I did not have any power outage in my home. And I had 5 days without power. So we need to see how we can make our power system resilient. The power lines, we need to work with the power companies and things like that so that every time there is a storm that we are not, in dark. So that is resiliency and sustainability that we can work with as a community, as with our power provider. And then also, we are seeing the fire and everything. So many people say that how we manage our forest, how we manage our fire risk, what our investment in our fire protection and things like that. That will be very important. Another area that I think that City of Sawamish, as we'd like to see it sustainable way, is the transit. If I need to go to downtown Seattle, I need to go to Highland Park and Ride. I need to take either 218 or 554 bus. Those bus has to come to Sawamish. Or we need to work with the Sound Transit or Metro that we have the ridership here, so that those bus come here. And also we need, I saw the plan for a park and ride in Sahali and in the 228 corridor. Probably that did not happen yet. So those are the areas that, city can, if we can do that. I know it require a budget, require a lot of other resources. So that will be very, very helpful. So I can support or contribute to all these areas. Thank you.
And thank you very much. And I believe our last person, I'm going to say it's Carrie Marie Harper. Am I close?
Close. It's Cara Marie Harper.
I wondered. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Cara Marie Harper, and I've lived in Klahani for over 25 years now. And I remember moving in, the realtor saying, oh, Klahani will be annexed into Sammamish within the coming year, so you'll be a part of Sammamish. So I've always felt that I've been a part of Sammamish, even though that didn't happen for quite a while. First of all, I'd like to say I'm very impressed with my fellow applicants and excited by all of their wonderful ideas as well. As I said, I've lived here for 25 years. I have a son at Skyline High School. I've been very involved in the community over the years. I was PTSA president at Endeavor and involved in the PTSA Council for the Issaquah School District. I've also volunteered for over a decade with the Klahani swim team. I'm on the board of the Volunteers for Issaquah Schools. I also did the community emergency response training through the city of Issaquah. Back in 2012, I chaired the science fair at Endeavor Elementary, so I'm also involved with and passionate about science education. Professionally, I work in the pharmaceutical research industry. I manage clinical trials, global clinical trials for new drugs. So what motivates me in that work has always been the the potential to help improve the quality of life for patients. And I think that carries over into my passion for helping the community and improving the quality of life for our citizens. As far as the question related to the objectives of the Sustainability Committee, I did look over what's planned for that, what has been accomplished in last year, which was the first year of the commission, and then what the plans are for the coming year. And I do have some additional thoughts on that. So 3 areas that I would like to see focused on are reducing emissions, water conservation, and waste management. Those are all topics of focus as part of the Climate Action Plan. So the first piece of that, as far as reducing emissions, we have a number of students in our community. We have 3 school districts within the city of Sammamish, and we have a number of students who either walk or bike to school because they live within that 1-mile radius of the school. So it would be great to partner with the schools and provide incentives for kids to walk or bike or carpool to school. I know sometimes, or a lot of the time, the weather is inclement, so they may not want to do that. So we have a lot of parents that are driving, one child half a mile to school so that they're not walking in the rain. So maybe providing some fun incentives or activities or prizes for kids who do choose to walk or bike to school would be a great use of our time. The next one, water conservation. There's a lot of focus on the drought-resistant landscaping. I was thinking it would be really nice to have some sort of like a demonstration garden in either the Pea Patch here behind us or one of the other parks in the city, and we could partner with Scouts. I also volunteer with my son's Scout troop over here at Mary Queen of Peace, partner with Scouts or Rotary or another community organization to build some sort of a demonstration area of what a drought-resistant yard or garden would look like for citizens to be able to take a look at and say, oh, these are things that I could implement in my own yard, and also maybe work with some of the HOAs in the area to promote that sort of initiative as well. As far as waste management, I know the city does a lot of recycling events, and I know one of my other applicants was talking about that as well, and knowing what's recyclable and what's not. We could look at partnering with an organization like Ridwell, and then also maybe at some of those recycling events have like a raffle for whoever brings the most to recycle or something of that nature that would make it a little more fun. One thing that I think could really help in terms of sustainability is to partner with Allied Waste to look at getting the bear-proof trash receptacles for our residents. I think that is a great way to help the local wildlife and then also reduce pests in our neighborhoods and dangers to our citizens there. Let's see. I think I had one more thing on here. And then as far as natural resources, just again, partner with local organizations to help out with things like invasive plant removal and habitat restoration. I know that there's been work done in Ebright Creek to help with the kokanee population. So I think maintaining those efforts is really important for our community as well. So that's all I had. Thank you so much.
And thank you. I'd also like to thank our city clerk, Krista, for making it a 5-minute exhibition, because I have to say, we've learned so much about you in a very short amount of time. And, I'll speak for council for 2 seconds in saying we're very impressed and now have an extremely difficult choice. So council, you've got your ballots. We'll be voting for 3.
Mayor, I have a question. Do we vote on position, or will we just vote for the 3 and then we'll slot them into positions afterwards?
Unless we have I was thinking vote first, frankly, and then work on the positions yeah, exactly.
One of the things that's so great, I'll add, as somebody who's been on board for a year, is these are such great ideas, and a lot of them we've talked about and how we implement them, and how we get the word out to the community. So that's the exciting next challenge. And it is a challenge. It's kind of a heavy lift, but it's a good one. We've got some great program ideas.
While we're waiting for the tally to come in, I would love to know what prompted you guys to apply. Where was it that you saw the notification that you thought, oh, that sounds really cool. I want to do that. Or did you have a friend tell you?
I think I saw it on Facebook.
Well, yeah, what?
I saw Pam at a what was it? Jane Fonda event. and she came over and said, you might be interested in this, and I was so excited to come.
Oh, that infectious enthusiasm, that's a wonderful thing. You infected with something else too, Pam. Did you guys see anything online? Facebook? Someone heard of this? Okay. Okay, so it looks like we have Mizan, Christy, and Brooke, who have earned enough votes in this little adventure to find themselves on the Sustainability Commission. Thank you for everyone that applied, and thank you and congratulations. And now we need to assign the positions.
Mayor, if I may, in the past, what you've done is done by the top vote gets and then go down from there to so the longest term the top vote getter gets, and then it shrinks based on votes from there.
And if that were the case, then what would that be? So our top vote getter is Christy? And they're all the same. I don't have the...
We'll have the clerk's office.
Okay.
One of the positions is January 26th, the other two are 29.
Okay. So position number 1 then will be for Christy. And then number 2 then for Mizan, and number 3 for Brooke. There's the, yeah, thank you. Its term ends January 31st, 2029, 2029, and 2026. And I believe we need to vote. We don't need to vote? Are we done?
Mayor, you all already voted with your
So we're good.
paper ballots. We're good. So just recall that what we will do is bring back the resolutions.
That's what happens.
For under
Got it.
consent next week
Yep.
for all of the boards and commissions.
Perfect.
But as of this evening, the votes are final in essence.
And thank you to everyone that applied. Please, keep your eye on that space too, because we have people that can't fulfill commitments and often have to drop. So don't be surprised if you get a tap on the shoulder saying, please apply again or consider another commission, because we'd love to have your engagement in the city. Okay, so next we have Parks and Rec. So we have Michael, Tracy, Ron, Kristen, and I'm going to say Zoe. So does anybody on Zoom for this, or is everybody in the room?
It appears that everyone's in the room, and just to note, Michael Timmerman has withdrawn his application.
Okay. If that's the case, we do have 3 positions that are open, and Tracy Smith, I'd like you to come up first, please. And Councilmember O'Farrell, would you mind reading the question for this one?
Happy to. Hi, Tracy. The question for Parks and Recreation Commission position is, are there any gaps in programs or policies related to the work of the Parks and Recreation Commission that you would like to help the city address? Please explain.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Tracy Smith, and I've been a resident in Sammamish for 18 years now. I'm a mom of 2 kids. My oldest just graduated Eastlake last spring, and my younger one is an 8th grader at Inglewood Middle School. So raising kids here, we spent a lot of time in our parks, and we continue to do so. I am an avid runner, trail runner, hiker. We also love swimming and paddleboarding in the summer. And I have just grown to appreciate and love our parks so much, and I think they are a treasure here in Sammamish. I'm seeking a second term here on the Parks and Rec Commission. I've learned so much while I've been on this commission, and I would just love to continue that work, continue to sort of channel my passion for the parks in that way. To answer the question, while I do think we've been making some strides on this topic, I still think there are opportunities to continue to support trail connections and land acquisition to support that objective. We know the community did a survey not recently, and trail connections was one of their top priorities. Providing these connections between our parks and our neighborhoods, it's so important. It helps keep our community healthy and vibrant and safe. It could potentially mean less cars on the road, which could help with less traffic. Helps also to provide safe corridors for our wildlife. And acquiring land for this helps preserve our tree canopy and our natural green spaces, which make our town so beautiful, and it's why we live here, right? We've recently acquired some amazing properties, and I am so excited to see those develop. And I think there's great potential there for creating trail connections with those properties. We also have this beautiful trail along Lake Sammamish now, thanks to King County. I just think it would be so amazing to see a trail from the top of the plateau down to the lake. And these properties that we have acquired, they get us a little closer to that, but I don't know if they'll get us there all the way. And so for that reason, I think we can't let up the gas. We still need to push on this to make it a reality for our future. And so while I think trail connections are a great priority, there are still some other things I would love to see. More Lake Sammamish access for the city. I would also love to see more dog-friendly spaces in our parks for our furry family members. And also taking a look at our sports facilities, making sure they're adequate, especially as the needs within our community change over time. And utilizing native plants in our parks, and possibly providing a native plant nursery as we cultivate those plants and see them throughout the city. So as part of the Parks Commission, I would just love to continue to support these things in our community because I love doing it. I love the work, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Ron White.
All right. Good evening. I'm Ron White. I have the somewhat unique perspective. I've been here for 27 years. Saw it before it was a city. I've been living here since the city, obviously. I was here pre-kids, raised kids through the city, and now are empty nesters. So I've kind of seen it through all the lenses of life, or most of them anyway. Also a lifelong volunteer. I think everyone should give back to their community. I think everyone has the ability, and most people don't do it. For the last 25 years, I've been volunteering with the Civil Air Patrol. That culminated a couple years ago with a 4-year term as the commander of the Overlake Composite Squadron, which is the closest one here to Sammamish. It's based in Redmond. We grew it to one of the largest in the nation, which pulled a lot of youth from Sammamish to become cadets, and we got to train them up in leadership, which was a fantastic thing to do. In the last year or so, I've been pulling back a little bit from the CAP to open up some other volunteer opportunities for myself. And honestly, this position has been one that's been on my radar because for a long time, I've always felt that Sammamish has just the geographic layout that we have. We don't really have this heart of a city like you have in Front Street in Issaquah or the waterfront in Kirkland. And I think a Parks and Recs could totally become the heart and soul of the city if we push in some areas. I'm not here to push any pet projects or anything. It's really, I think the Parks Department runs really well. I think we have a number of great facilities, a number of great parks. They're maintained very well. A lot of events that we do are really great. But I have 5 minutes to talk, and here's a couple of ideas, and there's a few more to show up, but for now, it'll just be these two. One that's fairly easy and one that's a little more challenging. So first, if you look around in the municipalities around the area, you have salmon days, you have derby days, you have fall city days, you have carnations, strawberry festival, Duval days. Everyone has a days, but Sammamish doesn't have a days. So I think it would be great to have a weekend that's just meant to celebrate Sammamish and kind of pull people together again in that heart and soul kind of concept. So that's the easier one. The more challenging one would be a public-private partnership to develop a music venue / theater in the area in Sammamish, similar to like the Starlight Theater in Kansas City. There's a number of them throughout the country, but that's a good one to look at because it is built on parks lands, and it was built with funds from corporate sponsorship and from grants, as well as a little sprinkling of dollars from the city. And then it's operated by a third party, much like what we do with the Teen Center here and the Boys and Girls Club and whatnot. So the same kind of concept where the city gets out of the operational headache and offloads that to a third party. It's still governed by the Parks Department. So, I mean, imagine things like Sammamish teens doing open mic nights once a month and things like that. You can have bands that are in the area that have a Sammamish resident being able to put on a show on, once or twice a month. You can have dance lessons. You could have theater, like I said. You could have comedy. All these things, and it's an opportunity to pull people together into community and create that whole heart and soul concept. I think I'm a drummer in a couple of bands, and I think music is a great way to pull people together. I think everyone appreciates music. It cuts across cultures. It's a great way to introduce people to new cultures. So I think it would be a pretty big win. Again, it'd be a pretty big thing to do, but I'll give back a minute. I got through that pretty quick. Thank you.
And thank you. Next would be Kristen Shane.
All right. Hi. Thank you for your time this evening and letting me speak with you about who I am and what I would bring to the Sammamish Parks and Rec Commission, and then also maybe talk to the question at hand a little bit. But I am Kristen Shane, and as you can see from my resume, I have had an awesome and albeit kind of non-traditional nursing career. I've built that career on relationships, on listening, and on problem solving, all with my focus on health and wellness. And even my most recent education has been to become a health and wellness coach, as coaching is a large part of my job when I'm working as with pediatric patients and their families. Besides being a nurse and a health coach, I am a wife and a mom. I have a senior and a sophomore at Eastlake, and then I also have a third grader at Blackwell. So I'm seeing a lot of differences in our community that have grown in my time here. But my kids have played every sport, so I've been on every park and field in the city. My husband is on the trails every week training for ultra marathons, and I am out there stand-up paddleboarding, getting together with my community, with my friends who hike, who are walking, and you can find me almost every day at the YMCA. And my youngest is now rating all of the parks in the city based on their monkey bars. So at my core, I value health, community, and integrity. When I see an opportunity for improvement, I am not one to stay quiet, which my time in the Pacific Northwest hasn't always been great because I'm a Midwesterner at heart and often aren't afraid to act and speak up. But I only like to speak up if I see that there are if I have ideas of how to help. But if I don't have ideas, but I may see that there's improvements that are needed, I am a person who likes to ask questions. I want to know what other people in my community think and feel and about situations. And I'm a person who can bring that all together. And if they give me great ideas, then I want to act. And so when I like to get my hands dirty as well. After this bomb cyclone, I live in Timberline, and I was out there with some other, I gathered a couple other families, and we cleaned up all of our trails. So after moving here 12 years ago, I asked my husband if I hate it. After 3 years, can we move? Because I didn't want to live in the suburbs. I thought I was going to be a city girl. And he's like, babe, if you hate it after a year, we can leave. So 12 years on, I have to say Sammamish is awesome. I love the people, and I think it's the most beautiful place. I could just drive in my car and sometimes look out the window and I'm like in awe. And so I like to brag to all my friends and family and other places about all the awesome things that we have here in our Parks and Rec. And so part of my being a health conscious person is that I know that City of Sammamish is one of the healthiest cities in the state, and I think that has a lot to do with our Parks and Rec department that is run very well. And so are there some gaps that I would like to work on? I do have ideas. I think that the trails, I love how much we do, everybody focuses on trails, but I think that we could use more signage in the trails to talk about our flora and our fauna, and even the indigenous people who have lived in these lands before us. And I think that could be a great Eagle Scout type project. I think the CMU gymnasium is underused. I think the high schoolers could take that, have more open gyms, so they're not having to pay fees at the YMCA for open gyms, but then also being coaches and mentors to younger kids to have open gym opportunities there. I would also love to do learning and walks we have so many amazing people who live in Sammamish, and they can give us so much knowledge to people. So working, giving talks while we're walking or having a picnic outdoors, meetups for different groups for moms of young families to go for a hike or meet at the park, but have them more planned through the city and meet people there. And lastly, pickleball in 2021, I emailed the city about making lines on all of the tennis courts. I was told that would happen. The one right by me still doesn't have lines for pickleball. So please, let's fix that. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoe Zhang.
Hi, dear City Council. Hi, everyone. My name is Zoe Jiang. I have lived in this area for 16 years, and I also work here. So a few of you mentioned Skyline today, and I'm a Skyline teacher. So I began serving on the Parks and Recreation Commission in 2023. I have gained a deeper understanding of the city's plans, facilities plans, budgets. And meanwhile, I have also witnessed the hard work and efforts behind each successful program and project carried out by the Parks and Recreation Department, all the commissions, and the City Council. So one of my biggest reasons I want to reply is that I appreciate working with such a group. And for the same reason, I want to tell all the applicants today, you made a wise decision. All right. As an immigrant, I think I'm glad I can share perspective that might benefit the DEIB guidance of the city. And also as a teacher, I work with students every day. So I can know their thoughts about the city, and I also can have a positive impact on them. So my students exchange emails with their pen pals every year. So I still remember we sent out our first email in 2014. And some of my students, they wrote, I live in Seattle. I was shocked. Their reasoning was that there wasn't enough exciting things to share with their pen pals. But no worries. Years have passed and things have changed. So now my students, they probably tell their pen pals, Sammamish is one of the most beautiful cities to live in the U.S. And also they excited to share what they have participate here, the awesome events, and also they noticed the new developments and they share with the pen pals. So they were excited. When we speaking about the gaps in the programs and policies related to the parks and the recreation, one word comes to my mind: connection. Just like Tracy mentioned, during the process of adopting the plan, trails are a priority for residents. So by connecting trails, we can offer convenience and enjoyment. But however, connections don't just refer to physical links. So it can take other forms as well. So, for example, we have like beautiful parks. I remember there's a meeting with Arts Commission where I shared an idea. So we can have local artists to create pieces represent our city, and we can placing them across our parks, right? So this can turn into a fun scavenger hunt to encourage more people to visit our parks. But the most important definition of connection to me is the human aspect. So when we talk about trees, trails, programs, actually the true goal is to fostering connections among people here. So whether it's providing covered area for people to connect together, even in bad weather, it's providing balance between preserving nature and the support of local businesses, offering enough sports facilities and social places for students, for young youth. So it's all about creating opportunities for people to connect. But I understand, I know it's always challenging to meet everyone's needs. So that's why I think the connections between commissions and between commissions and city council are crucial. So, because we share the same goal, we want to build a city that we all love and enjoy. So, thank you so much for considering my application, and thank you, everyone.
And thank you. And so now we've heard from everyone, and we have another extremely difficult choice to make. Please vote for 3. The positions, all the terms and position 1, 2, and 3 end at the same time, 2029. And it looks like we have a tie. Does that matter? I don't think it does, because the end dates are all the same. So congratulations, Ron, Christian, and Zoe. You are now on the Parks and Rec Commission, and we appreciate your service. And for Tracy, who served, thank you so much for your service as well. And we're going to move on now to the Human Services Commission. We have Seda, Jake, Nitin, Elizabeth, Nishat, Hussein, and Kristen will come off this ballot. Is everybody in the room? Okay. Said, would you please come up? Thank you. And please just correct me to death on that. So
that's Sadia. Thank you. But first of all, thank you for this opportunity. I wasn't prepared for this, but good evening, everyone. And I'm here trying to volunteer myself for the Human Services Commission. And I have been an active member, and I've been in Sammamish for the past 15 years now, moved here from North Carolina with really young kids. And my children have been through the elementary, middle, and high school now, and with my oldest in UW right now. The reason I'm here is I felt a few years back when my kids were going through middle school is when they learned the need to do public service or volunteering services, and that put me also interested in that and learned that I should start giving back at a younger age than wait till my kids really grow up and out. So I did start working into volunteering with my local community services within my community, and then I did become a board member for my own Islamic nonprofit organization here in Sammamish. And that's where I kind of came across a lot of gaps between our community and the incredible services that the city provides us. And hence, I'm here trying to educate myself and learn more about what the city can do and how we can connect the minority communities in the city and how we can go about that. And on a professional end, I am a technical program manager at Amazon, and have a very long career path. But all of that, I must say that volunteering really gives me happiness and peace, and I really enjoy that. So volunteering does excite me, and in human services is something that I would like to see. And my focus here right now is one of the challenges that I had faced when my daughter was volunteering at the older home services here at the Marion Wood in Sammamish, and they had so many seniors who wanted to go out to YMCA sessions, which they do such an excellent job, but they couldn't because of transportation. They just didn't know how to drive and how to get there. So that's one of my focus to see how we can improve transportation in the area. And I'm sorry, am I supposed to wait for somebody to ask a question, or I just went right in?
Well, you just dove right in.
Okay.
And if it would help you at all, Councilmember Treen would love to read you the question, because it may give you a second. It may give you a second to center in on it. So
thank you.
Well, I like the fact that you said, well, there's some gaps, and so we'd like to hear about what some of those gaps are in programs or policies related to the work of the Human Service Commission that you would like to help the city to address, which you're doing an excellent job of that.
Thank you. First of all, I would first want to confirm that those indeed are gaps, because sometimes it's just the lack of, what do I say, it's the engagement, the community as such. We are supposed to be following our own city council's Facebook pages more than the celebrities that our children usually do, and we also end up doing, so that we are in touch with what's happening. And that's how I came to know about this position as well. And yes, and so the biggest I feel is like, I know we have heard a lot about Metroflex, but then my shortcoming, I just don't know how to use that, and maybe because I just don't need it. But then as I've volunteered through the Sammamish Muslim associations and the MCRC and other nonprofit organizations, I said that not many seniors know it either, or how can they benefit from it, and the timings, and how we can kind of balance that out, because many do want to go use, and even my friends or senior parents who are in the community who just don't know how to avail these things. They're not very tech savvy, they don't have the phones, they don't have the apps. So now how do we build those gaps? And also what else did I have? Yeah. So that was one of my top priorities, to get some kind of a transportation services going on for them. And the other thing was, as my kids were going through school, I did realize that we needed more diversity. And diversity is not just cultural diversity, but also kind of getting more housing accommodations for low-income families. So we have like a more balance. So our kids don't just see which are the latest Nike shoes that their friends are having. And, they're just more compassionate to the various type of families and the incomes out there. So I don't know, maybe there is something already happening in there. But again, I am trying to educate myself, and the best way to do is start volunteering for it and learn and then contribute back. So that's one of my goals here. And
Thank you.
Am I out of time? Sorry.
You are.
Okay, I'm glad.
But you filled it well.
I know. Okay, thank you very much.
job.
It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
So next we've got Jake Hefner.
Hello, Council. Thank you for listening to me tonight. My name is Jake Hefner. I'm a Sammamish resident. I've been part of Sammamish for 8 years. I have 4 small boys, a wife, 2 elementary kids, pre-K, and a newborn 4 months old. I applied for this a little bit about myself first. I'm currently employed at Costco corporate office as management and membership services. Before that, I worked for Disneyland Parks and Resort in Anaheim, California, where I was a security manager there. Prior to that, I've worked in the restaurant industry for about 15, 16 years. I've always had a passion for people. I've had a passion for making sure people have those resources that the city and the state provide. The reason why I applied for this position was I have used programs such as that in the past as I first came to the area, such as the ARCH program, the food benefit program. Those programs weren't immediately brought to my attention. So I feel like the gap that we have in the services is the education and then that availability and that type of communication to our citizens that they are unaware of these programs. And what I'd like to do with this service, human service program, is provide better communication to those people, such as flyers in the community in certain places, areas where people can become more aware of what's going on, such as the ARCH program, as I mentioned. I wouldn't be in this area if it wasn't for that program. So I'm very aware of what these programs do and how they can provide to people of lower income. A little bit more about my background is I volunteer through Sammamish Little League. I've been a coach for 2 years. I also am in the Discovery Site Council at Discovery Elementary, where I work alongside Ms. Keegan and some members of the city of Sammamish, where we, as a parent rep, where we take suggestions from other parents and we provide suggestions to Ms. Keegan in regards to things that we can see implemented within the school. Another reason why I believe that I would be a valuable asset to this program would be my outreach to the community that I have with my work and with my experience with fellow citizens in Sammamish. I feel like I would be able to provide that type of communication where they could understand the programs that we could implement. So that's all I had today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Nitin Mehrotra in the room.
They're online. I'm promoting them now.
Ah, thank you.
All right, Nitin, you've been promoted, and I think you just need to unmute. Yep, there you are.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. To introduce myself, my name is Nitin Mehrotra. I have a wife and 2 kids, one in high school and the other in elementary school. Like any other family, our interests are sometimes very varied, which sometimes can lead to often very interesting weekend conversations where one kid wants to stay at home, the other person wants to head out. But we sometimes always manage to figure out some activities around which we can spend time together. On the professional side of things, I have worked with Microsoft for the past 18 years as part of their cloud-based AI business. I started with Microsoft back in India in 2006 and then got transferred here to the US office in Redmond in 2012. Initially, we lived in Bellevue for the first few years and then eventually moved to Sammamish in 2015, and I've been living here since. As I've grown older and hopefully wiser, I have realized that the importance of giving back to the community. So about 7 years back, I started volunteering at a cultural center here in Sammamish. At first, these volunteering activities were used to be a way to just feel good about yourself. Oh, I'm doing something for someone beyond just myself or my family. But gradually it evolved into the need to address the gaps that I felt by a certain section of the community. So, but now I feel that, there's this urge to do something more than just for me or for my close ones or for my, the cultural community that I'm part of, and give back to the city as a whole, which has been very welcoming to me and my family when we moved here. And that brings me to the reason why I'm here today talking to you all, interviewing for this volunteer position for the Human Services Commission. So I believe the question that I'm supposed to answer is what are the gaps that I feel, and then how I can help address those gaps. So to dive right in, like I said, I have 2 young kids, and because of that, I'm drawn towards the need to have like a mental health awareness for youth. The challenge that I see every time I talk to my son about this is that, they don't realize, or the kids don't realize that they might be having need to have like some kind of mental counseling. They think that they're fine. So I think that we need to create that awareness about, okay, someone might be going through some mental health issues, and then if that is the case, here are some resources which I think the city already provides, but we need to bridge that gap between, create the awareness within the population that might need this the most. So it's not just the kids. Kids are one part of the community, but there are others as well. Anyone could be in need of those resources. So that is one. And then the other one was that I think Sadia mentioned an aspect of this about the Sammamish Metroflex program. What I want to touch upon is that even if, say, someone has the app to use it and understand it and how to book those rides, the map under which it operates is very limited. So a lot of times the seniors who might want to go out, they will not be able to avail it because it's not operated in their specific area. So that is another aspect that we can look at. We could do well with having more cross-cultural festivals. Right now, how the city gets together is through those farmers market, July 4th celebrations and such, but we don't have a lot of different cultural festival where the community can learn about what are the other cultures or the people of the other culture that live here. I think Ron White touched around this aspect a bit, so that was nice. And then leaning on my professional experience, I talk to a lot of customers in my work at Microsoft, and I feel that the best way to understand what they need is to go talk to them, have some surveys. I believe as a city, we could have a similar approach as well. We could probably hire someone, or not even hire, if we have enough volunteers, we can conduct some kind of a survey reaching out to the residents to see what is the need that they feel that the Human Services Commission should address. I believe the last survey was done sometime in 2017, summer of 2017, so it's probably about time. So this time around, we can reach out to them and have 2 sets of questions. Ask them, okay, how do you think we have done based on the response that you gave us in your last survey? Has the city acted on those? And then looking forward, so that could be a report card. And then looking forward, what are those issues that you identify right now that the city should go forward and address? So that is another aspect that we would look into. And then finally, what I would like to do is, I would like to congratulate the council, because when I was preparing for this, I found a lot of information on the website, which was very nicely organized. So kudos to you all for that. And then finally, I would like to say I'm honored to be here, to be speaking about this, and thank you for the time to talk about all this. Thank you.
And thank you. Next, we'll move to Elizabeth Williams.
Thank you. Sure.
Are there any gaps in programs or policies related to the work of the Human Service Commission that you would like to help the city address?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. I am also very surprised at the amount of applicants that there are for all the commissions. I've worked at a few agencies now, so typically you're begging people to apply for volunteer commissions. I've lived in the Pacific Northwest for over 2 decades, mostly out on the peninsula, but I've called Sammamish home for the past 3 years. I'm currently serving the Seattle community as a strategic advisor for the city of Seattle, but I have 13 years of community development experience at 5 other agencies. I would say I consider myself quite fortunate to have a safe place to sleep and access to warm food, since that hasn't always been the case for me as a young adult. But I have had my share of fortunate opportunities, so I've reached a point in my journey where I'm kind of eager to give back and contribute to the commission. As far as the gaps, I'd say I would tend to agree with most of the items that were listed in the needs assessment, though how we would prioritize them now might be a little bit different, I think 8 years later. So I'd say I'm committed to listening to the voices of those in need another time again, since it's 8 years later. So I'd like to revisit that assessment to ensure it reflects any shifts in our community, particularly since we've seen a lot of growth since 2018. I'd say a good next step would be measuring the progress that we've made on the needs assessment, and identify any potential barriers and come up with some practical solutions, whether it be, getting transportation to the food bank, or getting seniors to their activities, or alleviating domestic caregivers of their duties for a few hours to attend any upskilling classes, or even as simple as keeping socks dry to those that have been exposed to the elements. I feel like I can bring valuable insight due to my personal experience with food insecurity and homelessness. And I'm happy to share any further experiences with you. And in closing, I'm hopeful we can get our residents the services they need, and also lend them an empathetic ear.
And thank you, Elizabeth. Nishat Imman.
And Nishat is online. I'll promote them now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Nishat, whenever you're ready. Nishat, you're unmuted and ready whenever you are.
Is the video not working as well?
They are allowed, or they are able to share their video
if they want.
If they want
Okay,
to, yes.
thank you. Because it looks like it doesn't work on our side, so.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hello and good evening, everyone. I'm trying to even do my video. Is everyone able to see me?
Yes, your video is on. We can
see you. Thank you.
And
Thank you,
Nishat, would you
everyone.
like to have the question again?
I heard the question just, yeah.
Very good.
Before, so yeah. Thank you. And thank you for your time. So yeah, my name is Nishat Imam, and I'm a software developer and with a passion for community service. And I have lived in Sammamish for more than 10 years with my family. I have a son who went to school over here and is now in Europe College. And for the past few years, I was a board member at Sammamish Muslim Association. And the reason I applied to join the Human Services Commission is because I believe in supporting our local nonprofits and increasing city funding for social service programs. I believe that the Commission should continue focusing on supporting our community's most vulnerable members. Affordable housing in particular remains a big concern in Sammamish, and the Commission should engage with public sector and nonprofit partners to work on this issue. And as I have said before, I was one of the board members at Sammamish Muslim Association, and there also we used to do lots of programs for all the vulnerable members. And I believe that the Commission can improve on outreach to the faith community. I believe all our local faith communities deeply involved in humanitarian and social service work. And it is important for the city to be engaged in providing funding for such activities and also showing up at interfaith charity-focused events. Because in our mosque also we often have such programs, and I feel the disconnect between these local organizations and the city. And so we should have some program where we can, group together and conduct these programs. Beyond this, I look forward to continuing the Commission's work in supporting humanitarian services in our community and building on existing partnerships with nonprofits and social service organizations in the community. I was part of MAPS MCRC program also. So yeah, if we can build up these gaps and come together, and then, I think from the community perspective also, they will have a broader engagement with our city programs, and it will kind of help knowing all the activities being done for all the vulnerable, groups which each individual is conducting, rather than coming up as a group together and working for them. So looking forward for learning more through the city, the programs which are conducted, and participating in other activities which I might have not known while I was working for MAPS MCRC or for the Sammamish Muslim Association programs, which were conducting those activities, which are conducting those activities on their own. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nishat. Is Hussein Aslam in the room?
He's also online, and I will promote them now.
Thank you.
Right, Hussein, whenever you're ready.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Hussein Aslam. I'm joining from Zoom because I'm actually on the other side of the world right now. I had no idea that this meeting is going to be when I'm on a vacation, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much. I moved to Sammamish about 2.5 years ago. I have 3 children and a wife, and I'm professionally a product manager at Google. as part of my role, I look for opportunities. I try to identify problems, and then I see, okay, how can we create value given that we have these opportunities or we have these problems? And in order to do so, we usually work backwards from the customers. We try to understand what our customers really want and how can we really provide them value out of it. So based on every research that we do, analytics that we run, we set a long-term vision. And based on that vision, we work with cross-functional teams and make it happen. A lot of our work involves, more future-centric technologies. A lot of my work involves around AI conversations and how can we bring AI to, make our lives better. I also volunteer as a Sunday school teacher. That's one way that I can give back to my community and, raise the next generation in a better way. So when I learned about the Human Services Commission, I thought that this is how I can positively impact the lives of people around me and give back. And that's why I decided to apply for it. And when I started looking at the current programs, I see a lot of good things happening. And one of the best things that I loved the most was the Senior Citizens Cross-Cultural Program. So it's specifically designed for our seniors, for our community, and it happens on an everyday basis. When I looked at other programs that we have, a lot of them were mostly supporting third-party organizations. And that's one of the gaps that I identified, that we need to be more engaged with our community, with our different segments like youth directly, rather than having someone else do that. A few other people mentioned that if we have more cross-cultural programs, even stuff like setting up marketplaces for our youth where they can hone in on their entrepreneurial skills and say, okay, what can they do? Making them part of the issues or problems that we have and ask them to think how they can solve it, so that we are raising the next generation of really smart, impactful leaders. The other thing that I wanted to point out, and Sadia already pointed out, is that we may not know all of the gaps. I was not even aware of the Human Services Commission, so that's a little bad on my end too. But I want to see that how can we bring more visibility into what we do. The events that I was talking about earlier can help us do that, but also, like, if I need help as a citizen of Sammamish, as a resident of Sammamish, where can I go? How can I get help? So we want to bring in that visibility. And then lastly, as I was mentioning, a lot of my work is backwards from our customers. What do they need? And so I also want to go back to our people and figure out what do they really need. Again, I think Nathan pointed out that our last assessment was over 7 years ago. A lot has changed. The pandemic happened. Our lives changed. A lot of people like me moved in. So I would love to go over, go back to our people and do another assessment and understand what they want. And one way where I can also help as a volunteer is to make an assessment like that happen. We don't always need to spend a lot of money and make it difficult for our budget. Given that it's what I always do, I think we can work with our communities. We can work with our volunteers. Use our social media platforms to understand what our people really want, and then look at our policy. And that is what will give us the real gaps that, okay, this is what people want. This is what we're already doing. Does that match or not? And that's where I think we can make the most impact. I want to thank everyone for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. I wish I was there. So hopefully the next time we convene, I could make it happen. Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us in the middle of the night.
Of course.
Thank you. Okay, Council, we now have an impossible job, because you have wonderful candidates, and we are going to be selecting two people who both have term ends January 31, 2029. So good luck.
I just want to say I'm amazed at how many people have come and applied, and these were really hard decisions, and we had limited positions. So if we didn't select you, please come back. At a minimum, send us comments about the issues we're dealing with. This was really hard, and I wish we could have picked everybody. I really do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for giving me the floor. I just also wanted to just add that Julie Varnes and Richard Bennett, who both served on this committee, have moved on, and I've worked with both of them and just appreciated over the years the services that they provided and the leadership. They were the leadership for this board. So just wanted to let those two know that we do appreciate their service and what they gave to the community. So thank you.
It looks like we have our two new commissioners, Jake Hefner and Elizabeth Williams. Congratulations and welcome to the team. Thank you. We'll move on to the Arts Commission, and I'm hoping that Councilmember Clark would be willing to read the question this time. Wow.
All right, do we have both here?
Do we have the candidates in the room by any chance? We do. Okay.
Two. Perfect.
I'm going to Venkataraman Ramanathan. And I'm, please do correct.
I just go by Venkat. Thank you, City Council.
Oh, and I'll read your question.
He's got the question.
Yeah. So for the Arts Commission, though, it sounds like you got ahead of time. What topics would you like to see the Arts Commission work on during your tenure if you are appointed?
I'll give a small background. I worked with the Arts Commission in 24, and we got a lot of work done towards the end, like September, November, October. Unfortunately, the weather canceled quite a few of our events. We couldn't get early on, and then the summer was pretty okay, but it was dull in the sense we couldn't get musicians to come on. I teach music in the community. I'm a violin teacher, and I get kids from about 7 schools, from even University of Washington. So I would like to see what the city can do in terms of music. We tried to approach how to get orchestra, meaning how to get equipment. But we preferred to go with somebody who just take the money and then do services and then come and rent it out for the youth of the community to come and play. Venue was a bit of a thing, but then we have the skateboard, the facility there. It was like an open auditorium for people to just come and enjoy, and we tried to push through a lot of that, but we weren't. Many commissioners were newly appointed, so we couldn't gather momentum last year. So I worked with Chirag. He continues until 29, I think, and there was a drummer in our midst as well. And we tried to make things happen, but it was already like August, September. So we came up with a plan. We did some groundwork. He brought a few teams for us to make some nice events happen. But that should happen I'm sure they'll pursue that. But if I'm given an opportunity, I'll also pursue with them, and then make possible some events early. early summer, late spring, we could have some events for the youth to come and do some try some music. We could take some rentals from Moore's Brothers, give some opportunities to local businesses to provide equipment, and then like services only, right? We're not acquiring anything. So that kind of thing. So if I'm given an opportunity, I'd definitely come back and then pursue what I pursued in 24 in a better way. I mean, the weather was a big disappointment in December. We had too many events, but nothing. I mean, Arts Commission in the sense we had a lot of arts, meaning lots of drawings, lots of paintings. Those things, those activities happened, and there was a class that happened, and then it was full, packed. But dance, nobody showed up. One event was a washout, right? So we want to see if we can use the weather, like in summer, to do something more than last year. We were all new. I mean, only one or two were from previous commission. So now I have a little bit of experience, so I hope I'll be able to pursue that further, volunteer further. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Payali Biswadi.
Payali Biswas Day. That's okay. Namaskar. I'm Payali. I am a senior program manager in Packer, but I am more known as an Indian classical dancer, artistic entrepreneur, and community leader for past 2 decades. And also I'm a freelance art critic for various magazines. And currently I am the Washington Humanities Speaker, 2024-25. Also, I am the master artist for Tegot style dance for Washington State Arts Heritage Arts Program. I'm one of the 16 pair of master artists. So I have 40 years of performing arts experience. I'm still dancing internationally all over the world. I trained hundreds of students throughout my career, dancing career. And I am here in Sammamish since 2012, and I'm here in the East Side since 2006. So I performed in all the auditoriums in East Side, and I worked with all kind of venues. And currently, I run an Indian Classical Dance Academy, which is based in Sammamish, which has 100+ students. And also, I run a nonprofit which is based in Sammamish, which won several grants like Renton, Bellevue, Seattle, For Culture, Washington State Arts. Even we are talking to National Endowment Arts. But unfortunately, I never got anything from Sammamish Art Commissioner. Like he also pointed out, I really pushed for like festivals, performances. It's never happened. Then when I saw this opportunity, I wanted to take it. Like I want to feel that gaps, which, think about it, here, like such diverse population in Sammamish, I can see like every household, the kids are into one art enrichment program, be it a dance, vocal, instrumentation like piano or flute or ukulele or guitar. But why the art scene is so like sleepy? Why we are not encouraging these like art organizer, why they are not doing it? Like we have to motivate and encourage and promote them. And also I feel like there are certain other commissioner, like in their speeches, they are saying that cross-cultural celebration. So the commissions should speak to each other. There are certain areas which are merging. Cross-cultural festival is an amazing idea, and which we can all do together. And main problem which I feel as an organizer, people look for venue. People actually have to think little outside of the box. Example, when I worked with Bellevue City, the venue situation is not great there. They suggested venues and they suggested resources. Same thing we can do. Example, there are so many international artists are visiting in this area. They do workshops. Why don't we bring that workshop in Sammamish Teen Center and give them that sound connections, and we can host it here. Even we have CWU, they do not have the sound, but we need to give some local sound contacts so that organizer can host their events, these kind of things. And the second topic which I want to really explore, funding. I can see the budget in art side is very less compared to others. I myself wrote so many grants. Can we not explore National Endowment for Arts for Sammamish Art Commissioner? Can we not talk to For Culture Sustained Support to bring this year For Culture Sustained Support spent billions, and I see several small city art commissioners got it, including my nonprofit got it. That's the reason it came into my radar. So why don't we explore that? Also, the last thing, since the time is less, there are so many art patrons are hosting 5,000 audience Diwali or other events. They are based in Sammamish. Why don't we approach them? The huge network I have created for last 2 decades. Why not they do it for our own beautiful Sammamish city? So after all, we need art. It makes a human lot better. Thank you.
And thank you. So, Council, I think we could probably do the same thing that we did before. Unless there's an objection, can we go ahead? And can I have a motion, please, to suggest that?
I move that we appoint Venkat and Piali to the Arts Commission.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. We're going to take your energy and milk it. Thank you. And this concludes an exciting installment of new commissioners. And I am excited. I'm delighted, in fact. This is terrific. So we can, actually, I'm going to suggest that we take a 5-minute break, and everybody has to stand up and stretch. Let's do it. You put your shoes on.
Yeah. You guys have better food trucks this year. What was wrong with the food truck? It wasn't Asian. It wasn't? I know, but so the only one. But there's a good thing is now we have Haidilao, the hot pot. Oh, we do have something that's Asian. No, but they just provide like Chinese snacks for free. Oh, but it's still fun. But so did anybody ask Arts whether or not, like whatever the panda, the one that comes in the yellow school bus that comes to the farmer's market? There's something. Yeah, there's some Spanish. Because it's just like Asian celebration. All the food trucks are not Asians. Emily said she asked the food trucks usually collaborate with city, but she hasn't heard any response on the one. Okay, I guess you can't make them do it. No, if they've got something else going on. Yeah. And because they're probably because we will provide the the face changing one. So they want to show this to you because you're very important. So that's why I just wonder what time the weekend will be convenient for you
to show up so we can
No,
arrange
so that you can know that. Okay, so it's all day, if I remember.
It's Saturday afternoon.
Yep. What time does it start?
Start from 1:30 to 4 o'clock.
Do you want us to show up at 1:30?
We can show up at 1:30. 1:30. Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead.
Okay. No, you're welcome. No, I go every year. It's fun. Yeah, I go every year. I don't stay for it's a long day. I know. I stay there for I stay there for quite a while. So I called you last night. I just wanted to kind of get your take on what happened on the parks with the whole land acquisition I did right before this meeting, just to figure out what happened because I don't know about it. So I guess my take from this is that this probably applies to all people in parks, is that they learn a little bit more about what's going on overall in the city before kind of making kind of some judgments. Because a lot of people didn't even know they were having financial problems. They didn't know how much. They didn't know the relationship. They also thought that there were things happening that weren't happening. Yeah. They seemed to think that there was some number that was being tossed around. We were going to pay some big chunk of money. No negotiations have happened. Yeah. That's fine. Well, the way it came across to us was it was surprising. Mad at us. And I was taken aback by that.
But you know, like when I watched this, I was not there. I was out of state. I watched the video
Of them when they came to the doctor.
Yeah, and I heard your reason. I said, that's what I want. But I mean, like,
so I guess
that's why I was like, national communications needs to be better.
Well, and also ask the question.
Yes,
You know, when you're in the meetings or before the meetings, even if you know something's coming, ask the question.
Yeah, I just keep forgetting to grab it.
Yeah.
No, they had it upstairs because they took them all down, and so then they put it behind the front desk, and I just never came and got it. Yeah, it's so freaking heavy. I've never had anything like professionally framed. But like I'm surprised. Yeah, that's what I was like.
And it just looks bad.
Anyways.
Just overall. So that was part of the reason why I was like I said, I should have called you.
Do you think?
But
I mean, I was kind of bummed.
I'm glad that you're back again.
Because I already had marked my thing. And I was like, oh no, let me scratch it off.
Okay, Council, we're back in action.
Thank you.
Now, I said that. Now let's see if we can actually do that. Okay, so we are now to, we've done that. Okay, we now have a presentation on the Information Technology Strategic Plan. I believe Jim is going to be presenting that.
Hello.
Hello.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, and City Manager. For the record, I'm Jim Hominick, Director of IT here for the City of Sammamish. And the presentation, as Mayor Howe just mentioned, is the Information Technology Strategic Plan that we've been working on and developed over 2024. On the next slide, there's basically, we went through a needs assessment, and through that, we worked with the City Manager's office. It's not coming across again? Okay, way closer. There, better. Okay. Through the needs assessment, we worked through city staff and spoke to City Manager's office, the department directors, as well as a total of 39 staff in-house throughout all the departments. From that, we also engaged our trusted technology partner in flow analytics, specifically Grant Herbert, and leverage their years of experience that they've been working with us here at the City of Sammamish. Largely focused on GIS, but they've also been through many of the departments and was very helpful in our endeavors. Throughout all that, gathering further insights into all of the broad systems that we have in place here at the city, and multiple systems in addition. One of the things that was also surprising is that we even found a few systems. I've been here a little over 5 years. We found a couple of systems that nobody in IT, even one of our 20-year employees, knew about. So specifically, it was Parks Department and their lighting and irrigation systems as an example. So we had no idea that they're running their own stuff, just doing their thing. So it was enlightening for sure. From there, we did, go ahead. From there, we developed strengths or saw strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I mean, the strengths with our team, we are a right-sized IT team for the organization. We are lucky in that fashion, but also very skilled technology folks, all professionals in my team. So that's been a wealth of goodness for the City of Sammamish and for everybody involved. Also, touch just one last time briefly on the cyber event that happened a number of years ago, and what that forced us to do was to put together a solid infrastructure and a strong security position. So that's in place, and that's a great foundation for us to move forward with. Some of the weaknesses that we were found, the lack of documentation around all our application systems. And kind of what that translates into is that's a slower response for IT to respond to any kind of issues or concerns that staff have, as well as they have trouble learning the systems and keeping them going. And so that's always been a challenge for us. The other aspect of that is the challenges with integration between systems. So we have a number of systems and they are not integrated very well. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. And so in-house, we've tried to connect and enable some of that data sharing between the systems, both automated to some degree and also manually. And of course, when it's manual, I mean, an example of that is downloading data from multiple systems and then combining those so that you can get some kind of a reporting or analysis out of that. So the opportunities that we saw also in front of us was moving more towards industry standards, which really are integrated enterprise systems. And that enables all of the different modules and all the different areas of business, lines of business, to talk to one another at the system level. One of the other areas is just the ability to gather, maintenance, as an example, maintenance and usage data around, assets. So whether that's equipment, we look at assets related to vehicles, a bit of a deep dive from a detail perspective, but it does show the example of not being able to understand what kind of investments we have to make around all of our equipment, facilities, and the like. Some of the threats that we always have really is that some of our systems are quite dated, and because of that, they can be challenging to get support. Of course, vendors always want you on the latest, greatest versions, and that costs investment to get there. And so what they try and do is push us towards newer versions. And of course, that increases our costs associated to that. So, and they move away from supporting the older versions as well. So that's kind of their kick at it. And of course, there's always going to be budget constraints, and we're doing our best to curtail our costs as we deliver internal services to the organization. So what's the outcome of our analysis and the overall scope is that, we've developed a roadmap for the current biennium and future years. We were asked to look out 5 to 6 years to kind of tie into all the other departments and their capital improvement programs. So for looking out in technology field for 5 or 6 years out is definitely a challenge because we don't know what's going to be out there. AI is a perfect example where things are just exploding there. And of course, we need to keep up with that and understand how that's going to work within our confines and also how to leverage it and better the organization towards that. The planned delivery through a thoughtful technology investments, and that's really what we're looking at. We've put in place several asks related to larger enterprise systems. Those have been incorporated into our 25-26 budget, the current budget that we're in, and as well as future asks down all the way out to 2030. And of course, the enterprise solution is focused on data-driven results. Really is that when we have an enterprise system in place and the personnel, staff leveraging that capability, it's going to make everyone's jobs that much easier and allow them the ability to produce data and analysis and keep that data transparent to all involved. So what that looks like, there it is the planned implementation timeline. So definitely a much larger investment early on in 25 and 26. And one of the key check-ins really to highlight is that as we bring these larger initiatives forward, we'll be coming back to council on consent agenda to show what's going on. The first one that we'll be looking at is obviously the financial system upgrade and the modernization swim lane. Been working, definitely partnered with finance and the finance director, Vicky, and moving that initiative forward. We have gone through an RFP already in that regard, and we are down to last two vendors through the evaluation. Still have some more work to do before we choose one. And I guess the other thing to mention that from a touch point with council is you'll probably have direct touch points when we move forward with our phone system replacement, which is going to be a team-based phone system. So that will reach out and touch everyone. Nicely, I hope. Looking at the next slide is basically a spreadsheet or a numbers perspective of the investments around technology. Pretty busy slide, unfortunately. Really what's key is that the heavier investments in 25 and 26 are already incorporated into our current budget. And so thank you for that. And we'll move these initiatives forward as best we can in a timely manner. And quick summary, moving towards centralized integrated systems is really the direction that we're heading. We're also going to have, IT or a technology facilitated CAB, which is a change advisory board, and that's really a decision-making board where we'll have leadership and directors, department directors involved in making those priority decisions, because we can't do it all at the same time. So we have to negotiate with the different areas within the organization to see who gets to go first in these upgrades and initiatives. And I guess one of the last things to touch on is just our ongoing commitment towards the technology infrastructure and, of course, the data security and integrity of the information, so that we don't get caught up in a bad space again. And that's always a challenge. I mean, it is a bit of a game of whack-a-mole, because every time you figure out, where they might get you, you plug that and they'll try and find another one. So it is an ongoing challenge for all agencies. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Jim. I'll turn it over to Council. Council, where do you have your questions? Okay. Is that 9? Okay. It's not. It's a completely different name there. Kaylee, I think, excuse me, Councilmember Clark, I think you were first off the mark. But it's not.
I'm curious what it says. For David's My Building Permit effort, is that going to be, do we know when that is? Or is that going to be something
fun
we get to pay for?
Yes.
Okay.
So it is on the budget slide. If Amber could bring it back. It is slated for late this year, early next year to get underway. We really,
letter A. Sorry, I did not see that.
Yeah, and that's a little bit confusing because the financial system is going first. So, and our target for that is to be completed by the end of this year, 25. It's going to be tough to push it through that quickly. And then sometime later this year is when we'll start to ramp up on the My Building Permit or the permitting system replacement for community development. Yes.
And so, Councilmember Gupta?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. You answered most of my questions, so I appreciate going into everything in detail. I did have a question. In the packet, it mentions that Parks is moving from CityWorks to NextGen AMS, but also that staff struggle with CityWorks, and park assets are not well mapped, so CityWorks is of limited use. And I wondered if you could go into detail about what is not mapped and what the opportunities might be in switching to a new platform.
Sure. So first of all, from a facilities perspective, they have ramped up on a small system called NextGen, and we are, in essence, it's a pilot, a working pilot, and because it was a small implementation, we went ahead with that. However, we do have a larger, more substantive asset management system in CityWorks. So once we get through the initial implementation of the financial system, that will dictate more of an enterprise approach. And then we will start moving down with looking at the other systems and what this enterprise system can deliver for functionality. And we'll start picking away with some of these other point solutions that are in place today. So it is a journey for sure. From a mapping perspective of what isn't mapped in the Parks and Rec area, the initial push within CityWorks from an asset management perspective was around stormwater assets and a few other areas, as well as equipment and work management for field, for maintenance workers and whatnot. When they bridged that initial question to Parks and Rec a little while ago, they weren't ready at the time to get into the detail level of asset management or asset tracking within Parks and Rec. So there is some mapping covered off within Parks and Rec, but it's much larger. So instead of having a park bench as an asset marked, they've just did the whole park. So it's just one. So there have to be a circle back to that and start mapping in all of the assets. And so then we can get into true asset management and looking at maintenance and that sort of thing.
Great. Thank you so much.
Councilmember, if I may, just a quick follow-up on that. It's not just Parks and Rec. The bulk of City Works right now is in stormwater, and we would love to get everything else in there so that we can start to build out our GIS layer a little bit better so that we could make that more available. And so this is always, Jim's been a little bit shy on talking about the desire and the need to try to get everything wrapped into one enterprise system so that we can be more dynamic with the community and make that stuff available online and easier to find and map out.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lamb.
Thanks, Jim. Can you help me understand if there's going to be any cost savings with these upgrades in terms of like efficiency, hours saved from staff doing something, that sort of thing?
So a couple of threads from an efficiency perspective. First of all, once the enterprise, the first kick at it from the financial system perspective gets implemented, then we have that foundation to start picking away at some of the small satellite or personnel or point solutions. And once we start removing those, there's going to be cost savings in there because all of those systems all have licensing expenses and whatnot. And of course, the care and feeding of those systems from a support perspective. So we remove those smaller systems and then focus our efforts and personnel and resources on the larger systems. Also, what the larger systems, these enterprise systems, bring to them is workflow enabled. And we've also incorporated, from a requirements perspective, some AI capabilities within these enterprise systems. That's one of the requirements. So now all of a sudden these large enterprise systems are going to be learning systems and how they take care of their business processes. And of course, it's much easier for us to adapt to these systems than adapt the system to what we're doing in our work on a daily basis. So those are the key areas from an efficiency gains.
I think it would be helpful as you know, we're looking at implementing a dashboard for the city, like to capture some of this information, because I think it would be really helpful to show that on a dashboard to show our residents what sort of efficiencies that we're making and how or just in general, how we're making government more efficient here.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree 100%. We need to have a foundation, an application foundation in place, because that'll help us produce those dashboards in a much more timely and efficient manner, and making it public for everybody to poke at and look at. So yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I'll jump in with a couple of questions really quick, unless there's other questions from council. Congratulations on completing a strategic plan for IT. That's a big deal.
Yep.
And I love the way you constructed it in terms of making it understandable, relatable. I love the fact you've got recommendations listed for each of the department level efforts. They look reasonable to me. However, I'm going to ask about metrics. So you've got a schedule, but I don't understand what the metrics you're going to be using to determine if you're successful beyond I got it installed on this date.
Well, date and financial targets around, and as you know, any project is it's cost, deliverables, and meeting the date, if you will. So honestly, from the financial system upgrade perspective, we're already a couple of weeks behind, and we know that. So we're going to have to pick up the pace on that so that we can hit that target for the end of this year. Those are really the measures that and metrics that we have in place at this point, is looking at our timelines and scrutinizing that. The other metrics from a requirements perspective is that as we meet these initial requirements that were part and parcel of the RFP. Those are metrics or measures of our success of the implementation. So as we start hitting those particular highlights, being able to produce those
Milestones.
scorecards, milestones, that sort of thing, configurations set up so that it does our business for us and that we're leveraging, the capabilities of the system. Those are other metrics.
Thank you. The other question I had to do with kind of purpose-built enterprise systems, because I know that we have to use, or we end up using things like NeoGov, so clearly for governments, jurisdictions. What % of your other software or technology projects are like more generic and not purpose-built to municipal infrastructure? I'm just curious, is it a 50-50 thing, or are you really stuck where you have to use solutions that are designed for municipal governments?
So the solutions that are designed for municipal governments, county level size, healthcare agencies, education agencies, those really are a better fit for the business at hand. So I do have, private sector experience in, previous positions, and they are different beasts altogether. I mean, the two finalists in our RFP are focused on public sector only, and that's all they do. And of course, one of the areas that is highlighted, less so for us at Sammamish, but it's public safety. When you're talking about fire and police, private sector doesn't do that.
Right.
We do. And so that's why they do have definite ties and advantages of doing just public sector related solutions.
Very good. And I believe we've got another question that's popped up. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I think building on what Deputy Mayor Lamb and the mayor have brought up, in terms of the metrics, I mean, you have all these criteria as to why we're doing this, right? Like, we're not just doing it because it's really fun.
Right.
Although, I mean, it kind of is.
It is fun for me.
But I think it would be great to have some of those, defined as our success metrics, like things like, the number of systems that we were able to retire, the time that we saved by not having to update all of those systems. Right. Can we put a measure on how much more secure we might be, right? Because while it is kind of painful that we always have to be on sort of more current systems, a lot of that is now driven by the fact that it's hard to keep older versions secure.
Yes.
And so can we put some sort of a, maybe that's a higher level measurement of like, we feel that we're more secure because we're able to install our updates. It usually is only 24 to 48 hours that the hackers have reverse engineered things. So if you haven't, security fixes, so if you haven't applied your updates within 24 to 48 hours, they already know how to hack into your system and take advantage of the vulnerabilities that have been fixed. So I think that there are some other measures that we could put out there to let people know this money isn't being spent just because we feel like we have to be on the latest and greatest. There's really good reasons behind doing it, and that might make them feel a little bit better about the tax dollars that we're spending.
Yep. Understood. Yes, and we can go back and put some meat on the bones as far as metrics.
Well, it'll make more sense as you get further into the project too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If there's no other questions, we can release you, Jim.
Thank you.
And we can bring up our next set of victims here. So we've got David Pyle, Evan Fisher, Blair Howe, Jeff Darris, and Mike Stanger. That will be coming up, I think. And we'll be getting a presentation on setting and implementing the affordable housing in lieu and fee as required by updates to SMC.
Good evening, Mayor Howe, Deputy Mayor Lamb, Council, David Pyle, Department of Community Development. With me I have, as was explained, Evan Fisher. Online we have Blair Howe and Jeff Darris with Kidder Matthews. And we also should have arriving any minute or online or in person Mike Stanger from Arch. This evening, we have a presentation for you related to implementation of our comprehensive plan and our development regulations regarding inclusionary affordability and the inclusionary affordability fee in lieu option, which allows for applicants in certain scenarios to pay for the inclusionary affordability requirement that goes along with all new development in the city going forward. I'll turn it over to Evan, who will share a screen. We'll have a presentation, and then we will happily entertain questions and provide additional explanation. There are additional touch points on this coming up before action would be asked of the council, and we will have additional opportunity for conversation over the next few months.
Great. Good evening, Council. Happy New Year. Good to see you all. My name is Evan Fisher with Community Development. I'll go ahead and just dive right into the presentation. David gave a great introduction. So the objectives of tonight's meeting are to first set some context and provide some background about the city's affordable housing program, introduce the fee, the affordable housing fee, and facilitate a discussion with council on the proposed fee, the market factor, and how the funds will be used and held. Before we dive in, I want to share our project schedule and objectives. Tonight is our informational presentation and discussion on the affordable housing in lieu fee and fund, where we'll gather your general thoughts and feedback. We'll use that input to shape a recommendation, which we will present to you on February 18th, while gathering further feedback. Finally, on March 18th, we will ask the council to approve 2 resolutions. One, amending the city's fee schedule to include the new affordable housing fee, and 2, setting policies around the affordable housing fund. Now that the 2024 comprehensive plan is adopted, we have officially moved into our implementation phase. The graphic on screen will look familiar and is a reminder of our comprehensive plan's timeline and life cycle. Tonight's discussion is one of our first steps in implementing the policies of the updated plan. From there, we'll be able to monitor and refine our implementation tools as necessary to maintain alignment with our stated policy goals. As you know, one of the primary focuses of this comprehensive plan update was to increase diverse and affordable housing opportunities in the city. This focus aligned with state and regional planning priorities, which aim to address the ongoing housing affordability crisis. Key policy changes were made to both the land use and housing elements to create a regulatory environment that would facilitate different types of housing at all ranges of affordability. Included in this was Housing Goal 3 and Policy 3.6, which requires or incentivizes affordable housing through a refined citywide inclusionary zoning program. To help set context, I wanted to provide a reminder about HB 1110, particularly as it was the legislation that opened the door for the city to implement the new affordable housing requirements. As you know, HB 1110 increased the density for areas zoned single family by requiring the city to allow 2 units per lot. The intention of the bill is to create more housing affordability by promoting smaller units through middle housing typologies. The legislature recognized that creating middle housing alone will not fully address affordability and therefore included provisions that allow cities to set affordability requirements through on-site development of affordable units or through in lieu fees. To implement Housing Policy 3.6, the city amended its development regulations to include SMC 2110 mandatory affordable housing program, which was adopted on December 10th, 2024, and is now in effect. The city's program requires that at least 10% of new units be developed at 80% of the area median income. Instances where calculating 10% of a new housing project results in a partial unit count below 0.5 would be satisfied through a cash payment, where a result of 0.5 or greater would be rounded up to the nearest whole number and require a unit be built. 2110 did set some exemptions, including for units under 1,000 square feet. So quickly, just wanted to provide some examples of how those calculations would work. So on the first example, one new housing unit would require 0.1 affordable units, which would be satisfied through an in-lieu payment. The middle example of 7 new housing units would result in 0.7 affordability units required, which would round up through the 0.5 provision and require a unit be constructed on site. And then the 13 new housing units example would result in 1 unit being built and then 0.3 being satisfied through in lieu payment. Now we'll shift focus to the fee itself. The fee is calculated using a model developed by Arch with support from BAE Urban Economics. The model uses a combination of assumptions about things like development costs, required profit margins, transaction costs, etc., as well as current local housing data to estimate a project's feasibility. The affordable housing fee is then derived by finding the difference between the model's estimated market sales price for a unit type and the affordable sales price at 80% AMI. The amount is then converted in a price per square foot. The final fee is a composite based off the model's results for several building typologies and is $34.45 per square foot. And this would be calculated on a project's total gross floor area. And on screen here, you can see a few example calculations. So the first would be 3 new units at 2,000 square feet would result in a total gross square footage of 6,000 square feet, multiplied by the 3445, resulting in a total fee in lieu of 206,700. And then the second example, we get into where the exemptions come in. So we have 4 new units. The first 2 would be at 1,000 square feet, thusly exempt from the fee. And the second 2 at 1,500 square feet each, resulting in 3,000 square feet that would apply to the fee, resulting in a payment of $103,350. Staff asked its economist consulting group, Kidder Matthews, to conduct an over-the-shoulder review of Arch's model to verify its assumptions and methodology, as well as to provide insight on how the fee may impact the local housing market. Kidder Matthews found the methodology and model to be sound, but noted minor differences in some of the assumptions used for inputs. They also highlighted that these types of models can struggle to anticipate and respond to changes in the market. They also noted that even small changes in market conditions can nudge a project from feasible to infeasible, and that any increased development costs could result in local market volatility. The City Council will determine how the revenues collected from the in lieu fees will be held. The 2 primary options are either the city could hold and manage the revenues in a new city fund, or have Arch hold and manage the revenues. Locally, both options have been applied, with Bellevue holding, managing, and distributing funds for affordable housing projects, while Kirkland relies on Arch. A potential benefit of using Arch is they have dedicated staff and resources to manage funds and help connect them with potential projects. And just to note, currently the city have no staff dedicated to an affordable housing program. Lastly, the council will need to determine how the funds are used. This includes questions like what types of projects could they be used on, or how long should the funds be held? Are the funds returned if unspent after a period of time? And we look forward to hearing the council's thoughts on these items in just a moment. So that's it for the presentation. And to help guide the discussion, I've listed the key questions here for the council's feedback tonight. And those, again, are, does the council have any questions about how the fee is generated? Any thoughts on if a market factor should potentially be applied to reduce the fee? Does the council have a preference if the city or Arch should hold the funds? And should there be restrictions or conditions on how the funds are used?
We're going to take a second and scooch over and bring Mike up to the table. Could grab one of the chairs here. Yep, great. Thank you, Mike.
Can you go back a slide for us?
Yeah, I think if you could if we could rest here, I think that would be wise.
This is more helpful. Yeah.
Yes, and did you want to say anything before I ask council for questions?
My name is Mike Stanger. I'm a senior planner at Arch, and happy to be here. Happy to see you.
Glad you're here. All right, Council, I'm looking for the board to light up. Not that I can figure this out. Okay, Councilmember O'Farrell, and then it will be Councilmember Gupta. Pretty sure that's...
Was it me?
Yeah.
I thank you. So I just had really, my questions were about the fee and the $34.45. So we're looking at that would be like our maximum that we of our fee. And when we talk about market factors, we're talking about that we would take a look at the housing construction market at the time and maybe reduce that fee to encourage this facility to be used more, because if we set it at the 34.45, are we thinking that that's too high, that would in some way discourage this type of housing from being built?
So we recommend the fee at 34.45 currently. That is based on the modeling that was done using current information. However, we recommend that we, going forward, set a program in place where we revisit the fee and evaluate housing starts. As part of the comprehensive plan implementation, we're going to be required to every 5 years provide a report to the state indicating how successful we are in implementing our comprehensive plan, what types of housing is being built, what is not being built, what types of obstacles or reasonable measures might need to be implemented to help promote housing. And one of those could be an inclusionary affordable housing fee. That market dynamics can change, and we want to make sure we're being responsive. One of the comments from the Kidder review was that these types of models can be slow to be responsive to market changes. So we want to make sure that going forward we're monitoring that. So our current recommendation is, and we'll come back at the next meeting with this, and it could change based on the feedback here and based on additional conversations that could happen after this meeting. But our current recommendation would be is that we adopt the 34.45 fee per square foot fee, and that we set in place a program to continuously monitor and consider updating the fee schedule to update the fee periodically. We would start at 2 years, possibly sooner, possibly longer over time, depending on how it all works out.
Yeah, that sounds good, David. Thank you. And because that sounds good to me, because this is something new for us and we don't really know how this is going to work. So I think that sounds good to me. Also, I'd be certainly in favor of, given that we don't really have any designated staff taking care of such a program, that it would make sense to me to have Arch facilitate that for us. I'd certainly be, and one of the questions in the packet was about where would we like to see those dollars go? Would we primarily like to see them happening within Sammamish, or would we like to see it going to other projects in the region? Certainly if the dollars were of a small amount, and maybe it would make more sense for it to go to a more regional project. But I would always be more in favor of it, something that would happen within our city limits to begin with, if we felt that pool of money was large enough. And that was, I'd be interested to see over time kind of what that fund needs to be, like how big does it need to be for us to get any value out of it. And I saw in the package, which I really appreciated, having Arch's analysis in there and giving the examples of what Bellevue are doing in the Belred Centre, and that's where they're putting their dollars. And I think their fee is set at $28 and something cents. So they've kind of taken that in-house and they're managing it themselves. Obviously, Bellevue's a much bigger city than us. So I think it would make more sense for us, in my opinion, for Arch to kind of set that infrastructure up for us. So that was primarily my question was around that fee. And I think that makes sense to me to kind of set it at that and kind of see and wait and see what happens. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lamb. Aren't you? Sorry, is it you? Okay.
I think it's Pam first.
You go.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. So I agree. I think it makes sense that the funds be held and managed by Arch. Because we have that partnership, I think it makes sense to leverage that. I'm also leaning towards the funds being used within Sammamish if they can. I know one of the suggestions in the packet was if there's a small dollar amount in a year, we can consider putting that towards regional projects. And I wonder if one of the conditions on how long the funds may be held, if they're not spent within 5 years, then maybe we open those up to a regional project. My concern with turning the dollars over year by year, if it's a small amount, is we're maybe never going to get over that hump, even if there's a major development and we're drawing down from that fund every year. We're not going to get the big project that we could fund if we did hold on to the funds for some number of years and let that accrue. I did, for fine-tuning the fee, I agree it makes sense that we set it at staff's recommendation, set up a policy to update it every 2 years. That sounds great. I know the ARCH recommendation was to have a single fee, regardless of typology, for simplicity. And I was just curious, is there the potential to have that be a lever that we can pull to help influence the types of housing that we get if we do differentiate between typologies, or is that just too much complexity and are we getting in our own way by doing that?
Can you speak to that at all? Well, I don't have Redmond's code by heart, but it is feasible to have a different fee for different housing types or project types. In fact, that's the way we modeled it with different scenarios and housing prototypes, and then kind of took a midpoint of those different types, which were all showing positive result or feasible results. But to answer your question as directly as I can, yeah, that could be done. It would be the way it's set with a single fee across the board now would favor some types of projects versus others, because the different scenarios generated different fees, and as I said, we took the midpoint. If you wanted to have different projects, well, maybe I should stop there because I don't think I could add anything that would be more specific and definitive.
No, that was helpful. Thank you. I would add to that we already have started to design this program in concert with the development regulations to help drive builders towards building smaller units by adding that 1,000 square foot exemption, which happens to mirror what the exemption or what the allowance is for accessory dwelling units. It's important to note that there's multiple ways to develop your property now going forward with middle housing and with the ADU allowances. And I think the classic example is if you were to build traditionally we're seeing 4,000 plus square foot homes being built in the city. So if you were to come in and build a 4,000 square foot home, you'd be paying $34.45 per square foot on that new home on a vacant lot. But if you were to build a new building, and within that building you were to include a 2,000 square foot primary unit and 2 accessory dwelling units attached into the building, you'd only be paying the fee on 2,000 units. You could design the building so that it operates like you could, a larger family unit, you could use all 3 units, but as you age or as your dynamics change, you could choose to live in one of the ADUs and rent the other 2. You could live in the larger unit and rent the other 2. So what it does is it starts to push us towards building a housing stock that is more flexible and provides more versatility in how it's used over time. Whereas now we have large 4,000 square foot homes, you buy into one of those, you're left with one of those for your life cycle until you choose to sell it and downsize. So we're trying to make changes earlier in patterns and habits about how we build homes. This is one of the tools in concert with the development code that was put in place. But it's a good idea that over time we could choose to, if we see that a certain type of unit is not being built, we could choose to set a different fee for that type of unit. Or if we see one that's being overbuilt and it's having more of an impact on land economics because they're selling at a high price per square foot, which is raising land values, then we could choose to adjust the fee accordingly based on the inputs that go into the model for that specific type of that unit type.
I'd just like to add one thing, that the complexity factor is not so much that that it's cumbersome to look down a list and see, figure out which is the right dollar fee to use for which project. It actually can be more cumbersome in the sense that of distinguishing which housing type it is. For instance, how do you distinguish a duplex from two attached townhomes? Or in some of our communities, the distinction between an ADU and a cottage home is really hard to make, as hard as you might try to write it into code. So having one fee makes that distinction moot. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I think I do like the idea of leaving the door open to revisit that later on. But I think that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah, I have a math question, right? So one of the things that's a little confusing to me is how the total square footage is calculated. So for example, if we had, if there was when you go back to your examples, right? If it was a 10, if you're building 10 units, right, then you would need to build one affordable housing unit. And in that case, would there even still be an option if it's a whole number for fee in lieu of? We're saying that, so it wouldn't, right? It's only when there's a fractional, right?
There is currently not that option. However, there are other off-ramps or relief valves in the code, such as land in lieu donation through a development agreement, or allowing the unit to be built at a different development project. Say you had a few different development projects within the prescribed proximity, you could build it at a different project.
Right. So in that example where it's a 10 unit project, you wouldn't have the fee in lieu of, you'd have to make one of them affordable. But if you only had 9 units, right, because that's all your property could support potentially, then you would have this option to do, well, actually, I guess not, because 9 rounds up to 1. So it's really only if it's 0.49, right? So it's only really if you have 5 units or less. Is that right?
4 or less,
4
right?
or less, okay.
Because 0.5 and up round up to 1.
Round up to 1, okay. So in that case, it's the total number, it's the total square footage for all of the units.
It's added up. It's defined in the code. There's a method to do that. One thing we could leave the door on also going forward, since we have these code amendments queued up, and we would continue to try to do some monitoring, is one thing we've heard from developers, and there's a financial advantage to doing this, is that they would rather pay the fee in lieu. So if someone was building 10 units, then they'd had to build one affordable unit. They would rather pay on the total square footage at the fee per square foot because it's predictable. Currently, it's a little bit lower than what the actual cost would be of building the unit. And it allows that ability to factor that into their economic modeling.
But that's why we don't want to do it, because it's not exactly the cost to build a unit, and we really need that unit to be built. So.
Understood. Yeah, and my point was was a little different. Was that if we're seeing housing starts stall, that there might be things we can do to adjust the program and how it works as a reasonable measure to try to build housing.
Got it. Okay. And then answering some of your questions, would it be advantageous for us to set a market factor, and we would set that market factor at 1 right now so that it doesn't change it, but that would give us a variable that if we needed to quickly change the fee because we see a sudden change in the market conditions, we would be able to do that more quickly than having to reevaluate the whole 9 yards.
So we're not in consensus between the three groups that worked on this about a market factor.
Oh, okay. So don't go there is what you're saying, David? Okay, got it.
Well, there's different levels of comfort with market factors and what they actually mean.
Okay.
We have Kidder here, and maybe they could speak to some of the influences just some minor cost differentials can cause to housing starts. And they work a lot with the development community in trying to understand whether a project pencils or not. And they see the pressures that developers are facing, and costs are costs. So I don't know, Blair or Jeff, if you could speak to generally how developers react to increased costs, or how that factors into their bottom line, or their business model, if you will.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I think possibly the best way to answer that question is that when we look from the outside in at a developer and his pro forma, we have a tendency to discount or not think about what increased costs do to a project and its viability. And any cost at all under certain market conditions could make a project infeasible. On the other hand, when the market's really good, additional costs are manageable. So this discussion we've started to have internally about what's the right amount, what's the right fee, how would we adjust it, and what index or criteria would we use is something that we're still just kicking around. Does that help at all?
Sure. So I think what I heard was, when you're done kicking it around, we can have this conversation again. So I'm good with that. And then I think your last question was around, do we hold it? Do we have Arch hold it? What do we do? I would also be in favor of having Arch do it, just from a staffing perspective. In terms of, how do we apply those funds and where? I think it would probably be good if we had some sort of criteria that said, first preference, right? Default would be Sammamish, but we would only hold it for a certain amount of time. And if there was no sort of planned, affordable project in a certain period of time, that we would release those funds to the region, just because the urgency for affordable housing is so great that I wouldn't want to hold the funds kind of indefinitely here if nothing was really happening. So I don't know if that's something, I know that sounds pretty complicated, and I don't mean to make it overly complicated, but I think having some relief valves there would be good, especially if the amount of money that we collect just ends up being really low and it's just sort of sitting there. It could still be beneficial to someone else or whatever.
So there's two parts to this action, right? The first is amending the fee schedule by resolution to add the affordable housing fee, in lieu fee, per square foot in lieu fee. Mm-hmm. The second is setting a program and direction on how to handle the funds and the criteria and direction about how to spend the funds. If it's held by Arch, the city council is still in control of how those dollars are spent. Mm-hmm. So what we could do is we could draft up a criteria document that goes along with a resolution about the program, and we could start to build out what the resolution would look like for you to consider at the next meeting prior to the final meeting where you'll be asked to take action. So we can do that and bring that back. That's not a problem.
Great. That's it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. So I support the 3445 fee, that Arch should hold the funds, that a market factor it sounds like that's coming back. And I do believe that we should build in Sammamish when we can. And that kind of leads me to something in the Arch packet. I think it was on Appendix B, where it talks about site acquisition in each city, the cost per acre. And I was really surprised when I look at these numbers, because I was always under the assumption that there's only one Arch project in Sammamish, and they're all in the neighboring cities, and that was because the cost of land was so much. But based on Appendix B, we are like one of the cheapest cities for land. But I was also surprised at the amount that it was $3,600,000 for an acre of land. Like, how's that even possible? Shouldn't it be a lot less? So I guess I don't understand what site acquisition cost is.
Yeah, I could speak to that a little bit. The acquisition costs there are meant to model cases, and it's taken from a survey of a data set of actual sales in Sammamish and elsewhere. Those are sales of parcels that have single-family detached homes on them that are potential for redevelopment. In other words, they're smaller homes, they're older, and they're they have that potential to be redeveloped for middle housing. So it's not a survey of all the land values across the city.
One thing that I'll add, having worked in a few cities, is that the raw land cost in Sammamish is possibly a bit lower because of the infrastructure component that goes along with it, in that the infrastructure here is considered as developing versus other cities where the infrastructure is far more robust and already established, and the actual costs that go along with developing the land here is much higher because you need to bring in a sewer, you need to make road improvements, you need to bring in water mains, and there, at times the builder is required to, such as like the Carrier project down the road here, build an entire lift station. So, they're the sewer lift station, which can be quite costly. So these are factors that go into that. So when you're buying land, if the land is serviced already, the cost is going to be higher. But if you're buying land and there are infrastructure deficiencies that you need to account for, the cost is going to be lower.
Okay, so that helps. I guess it costs more than what this table actually shows. But I guess my hope is that we still focus in some ways to build more in Sammamish. Like, I was really hoping that the land, the cost of land was much less, and we would be able to get an arch project here.
So we're looking real high level at a variety of factors to try to pull projects into the city. For example, faith-based community we're seeing consolidation of properties in the faith-based community, and there are properties becoming available. We have the Sammamish Presbyterian Church that's looking to, for example, as a matter of its mission and as a matter of providing housing, build some additional housing on its property. We have the ability to locate other pieces of property, partner funds. The benefit of a program like this and a fee in lieu is that we can then take the dollars that are received and we can make a local contribution to bring a project in interest into the city. We can then seek Arch Housing Trust Fund dollars. We can then, with the city's local contribution, the Arch Housing Trust Fund contribution, we can then seek funds from housing philanthropists like Amazon and Microsoft and start to pull those funds into the city. Whereas if we don't have that initial fund to start the project in the first place, that's a local contribution that indicates the local interest is serious about these projects, then we're not really a good candidate for Arch Housing Trust Fund dollars and for philanthropy dollars and other dollars that can be brought into the city to start to build some affordable housing.
Okay, great. I did notice one mistake on the Arch document. I don't know if I should just mention it here. It was on page 65. It mentioned that Sammamish doesn't have the 10% requirement for smaller, like the equivalent, like you can only make it 10% smaller if there's a comparable. And it says Sammamish does not, but we do have that requirement. That change was just made, right?
Right. So that report that was there, I think, just barely predated our adoption. So there was a time, but yes, it should be noted in there for sure.
I thought I'd just mention it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm looking for comments maybe from Councilmember Treen and Clark.
Thank you, Mayor Howe. So maybe I'll start from the bottom and work my way up. But are unused funds returned after a period of time? No. What types of projects can be used on, how about affordable housing projects? How long can we hold the funds? Indefinite. Does the city council have preference? So I can't answer that question about holding the funds. And the reason why I said it is because what is it? Because if the number is huge, if it's a big number, I want the interest. So, because then I can afford the staff to run the fund. So, do we have a program? How about if our IT dollars that we're going to spend here makes it so AI or some other form of a system can make it so that we can actually manage this ourselves? Then I would just say right off that, that I can't answer that question exactly. I understand where Arch is coming from, right? I've been on the council 5 years. I'm fully aware of their capability and what they can do. And so, yeah, I think that's a good idea. But what's the number? What's the dollar amount that we're talking about here? Market factors come back to us. Thank you, Councilmember Stewart. Does the council have any fee? I understand how you guys derived of it. So that leads me to really a bigger question then. Should we even be doing it? And that's where I struggle the most. Because I think the outcome, what's the outcome then that you want? The outcome that we want is affordable housing. So will this actually provide affordable housing in Sammamish? And from all the what ifs and the question marks and the scenarios that are being painted out there right now, the answer is doubtful. Probable, give me a percentage. 50%, 25%, and especially if I start going into the lower AMIs, those numbers drop drastically. When I'm doing 0 to 30% AMI, then David, you're right. Then we go to the faith-based, and if I go to the faith-based, so then here's my question too. This is pretty complex now, I guess, but are they going to pay a fee in lieu? And then why would we do that if they're actually building the affordable? Why would we charge them more money to build something that then now is going to cost more money to the person who's either living there or buying it?
That's a good question. And we had that comment from the Planning Commission earlier, and we did create an exemption for affordable housing does not require to pay the fee in lieu.
Right.
In terms of the dollar amount, we estimate anywhere between $50,000 to $150,000 per unit being built in the city. So say we built 100 units in a year, what would that come out to be? I'm sorry, my simple math mind is not really there. But if it was, 100 times, say, an average of 100,000, I can't even do that right now. 10 million.
Yeah.
So that would be in 1 year. That would be the amount of money that would then be in that account. So my understanding is that, and Mike, I don't know if you can speak to this. If not, we can come back with an answer on this. Bellevue is the umbrella agency to Arch. So when Arch holds the dollars, it's held by Bellevue by a division of Bellevue that supports Arch. But how would I wouldn't worry about that. How would the interest on monies that are held be handled if it was held by Arch? And if you don't know, we can come back with that. It's fine.
Well, interest in the trust fund stays in the trust fund, and it accrues to the contributing jurisdiction, proportionate to their contributions. So the city already makes contributions to the trust fund year to year, is my understanding, and so this would be handled no differently than that.
So we would retain the benefit of the interest on value. Sure.
And then if we were to do a project that said was not in the city of Sammamish, some of the times the argument has been for or against this is that it's like, so do we get counted as we've built affordable housing because I help provide dollars for Kirkland?
So we've asked that question of the State Department of Commerce, and the answer was kind of.
Yeah.
that it is something that's factored into our 5-year report on housing production. Although it's not a hard number of a unit created in the city, that it is a component of regional housing needs. And that is something that's considered, especially if the city is also at the same time doing everything it can to try to build affordable housing in the city. And just so happened that the housing being built was happening across the jurisdictional line.
County staff and Affordable Housing Committee is making plans to do that same thing, that same calculus also, that cities would receive credit, so to speak, for affordable housing that was built outside their jurisdiction using that.
Right, because we'd be following the 2050, Vision 2050, and we'd be building it near the services that were needed for those people who could afford or need to have that type of housing. Just makes sense.
Correct.
Sammamish just doesn't, the challenge that we face as Sammamish is we happen to not be one of those cities that are sitting there with transit and light rail coming in. So it seems to me, and I could be wrong here, but it seems to me we should continue to support ARCH and building affordable housing, especially at the lower levels of AMI, where it's near the services, which means it's in a different city. And as long as we're getting credit for that, then it seems like that's a smart thing to do. It's best bang for the buck if you want to look at it that way. So thank you. That's my comments tonight. I look forward to further conversations. Thank you.
Councilmember Clark?
Fee is good. I think ARC should hold the funds, especially after Councilmember Turin's question and answer. Restrictions, I'm kind of confused on like what a good number is for how long they're held. I mean, like how long, are they held until like a project is identified? I don't know. We're just holding it until a project is identified, is that, or someone is?
That's one way to take it. Another way would be that no fund shall be held for more than, you could input whatever year you wanted to, 5 years on a rolling average, so that funds collected in year 1 would have to be spent by year 5, funds collected in year 2, year 6, so on and so forth. And that any given year, the amount available in the account is the amount available to be spent. But that funds that reach maturity date beyond year 5 are then diverted off to supplement the city's Arch Housing Trust Fund contribution, which then gets spent in the following year based on what the Arch Community Advisory Board recommendation and Arch Executive Board decides for projects to be built. So basically, if $1 million was collected in year 1, but not spent by year 5, and then rolling into year 6, that automatically would be diverted to the Arch Housing Trust Fund to be used, and it's just a rolling average or a rolling total based on year 1 falling off in year 6, year 2 falling off in year 7, so on and so forth.
And is the 5 years just something we have kept saying, or is that like some sort of standard?
No, that was the year I just picked out of the sky.
Okay.
It could be 10 years.
Because I was like,
I
don't think I have that knowledge to say. Hold it for 7.5 years.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And, it's something we're going to monitor, and we're probably going to come back to council for further direction as years go by and we see what the revenue is that's brought in, and we see how, other cities are handling these things and opportunities for projects appear, and whether they don't appear. We want to be able to be dynamic, nimble, and responsive to things that are happening.
Yeah, and I think priority would be in Sammamish, and if that means like we have to hold them longer, then I'd rather wait for that. I don't know, I don't even know how you would calculate that, but yeah, and I wouldn't really want unused funds returned either, so.
You could also make the exception that if the council finds that a project is worth partnering with another city on that doesn't happen to be here, that you could make exception to that, and we'd have to come to the council for that direction.
Very good. Seeing no other comments, I'll add mine. I like the fee of $34.45 personally, market factor. I'm glad that we're going to be taking a look at it on a regular basis. And I think that's kind of how I feel about looking at how long we hold funds. I think I want to stay as flexible as we can on this. And the question I'm going to have for Arch has to do with Redmond. in specific, the city's accepted in lieu fees from only 3 projects so far. How much have they been and for how long have you held them?
Redmond's policy on accepting in lieu fees has been only to agree to take them if they had a project that was ready to go. And so that's only happened for 2 projects. So three paid and 2 projects were invested in. They were in, one being the Together Center.
Okay. And so Redmond accepted the fees. How much did they accept?
For
I mean, in total.
In total,
roughly, not a real number. It could be close.
About $7 million.
Okay, it can be money.
Now those were not for fractional amounts. Those were for like 27 units here and 20 units here and maybe 24 units there.
Gotcha. Because they're able to do that given their scale.
Right.
Yep.
But when other developers had come to them and said, we want pay and fee in lieu, the city said, well, we don't have a place to put it right now, so we're not really interested. We'd rather have the units on site.
And what did that do to the project? Did it delay the project? Did they move it someplace else? Did they build the unit?
They built the units.
Okay.
They built the projects and provided the units, yeah.
Well, Redmond has also a fairly stable, consistent policy around this as well, and that's well known and been amplified, actually. Okay. I also curious if by any chance the fact that we're starting to really talk about different types of housing structures and units, are we seeing any uptick in ADU permits? Anything of hope?
So I get, by way of my email account, all of the project guidance requests that come through, and I usually ignore most of them just because we have staff that do that.
I know you
but
ignore mine.
I do random sample them, and I have seen a significant number, even predating our recent adoption in December, of interest in accessory dwelling units in the city. We are seeing an uptick there. Since we've adopted the regulations, have already received several inquiries on middle housing development. Duplexes are hot in the market right now. So we have builders that are interested in building duplexes. We'll see where that goes. We're working out application of the rules. As we said, we have that open door for the code updates. We might be bringing some to you, but we're working with the building community, trying to understand how exactly everything fits together once the dust settled from adopting those development regulations. And we're really looking forward to seeing some different housing types being built. And I have to say that I feel like, just reading through our rules, that based on how we set the dials in our development regs, and with this fee that's added, it starts to drive developers towards smaller units. And if you built 3 units, if you allowed 3 middle housing units on your property, and you built a 3-pack that was 1,000 square foot for 3 units, you don't pay the fee.
Right, no money.
So, it really, I think once developers realize, and some of the explanations I gave about ADUs, how you could stack ADUs in an independent building, you can sell ADUs now, you can condominiumize them and sell them. There's a whole variety of things that you can do. And once our individual property owners, the building community, all of us wake up to these things that are available and start to be creative about how to, stick the Legos together, we're probably going to see some really great projects come out the door. We might see a few that we'll think twice about, but I just want to caution us all about that. And we'll be able to be responsive and try to correct the problem through some code updates.
Well, thank you for that. And Evan, I wanted to thank you for the really clear examples in your presentation too, because that really helped, I think, too. If no other comments, we can allow you to go home to friends and family.
I also want to thank Kidder, who's in the cloud here. So thank you, Blair and Jeff, for your assistance on this, and they'll continue helping us on this until we reach adoption in March. Thank you.
And thank you for your time. Next, we'd like to have public comment for the extraordinarily patient people in the room who, kudos. I'm very impressed, but I do need a list of folks who've signed up, and then we'll go from there. Mary North. We should set that to 3 minutes. Thank you.
First, I need to commend you on your stamina for these incredibly long meetings. Wow. And I also want to thank you for the opportunity to hear a citizen of our beautiful city. Tonight I'd like to address some issues with Ziply Internet. My name is Mary North. I live in Timberline, which is just north of Sahal. You know this. You know where it is. Timberline has approximately 600 homes, and Timberline community is nearly 50 years old. When the developers made Timberline, they had a conscious thought not to clear cut, as a lot of developments do. They have preserved some of the beautiful, beautiful trees and landscaping that we have in our area. Currently, Ziply is installing fiber internet network in Timberline, and you know what, yay for them. Unfortunately, they are ripping up lawns. They are ruining garden plantings. They are cutting through the roots of 100-year-old trees, folks. They are cutting through people's irrigation lines. They are leaving unmarked holes. All of this comes from our Timberline neighborhood website, where people have posted their personal experiences with what's going on here. I checked with the city. What's going on here? And what can we do about this? And I did get the response that Ziply is required to notify people before they tear up their lawns, which in some cases they do, and in some cases they do not. Ziply is using what is referred to as right-of-way. That was a new term to me, probably not to you. Okay. And they are also required to provide restoration. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the problem. Provide restoration. How does one restore a 100-year-old tree? How does one restore the daffodils that somebody planted in their yard 20 years ago? How is that possible? I won't continue on. I certainly have pulled many, many responses from our website. My neighbors understand what right-of-way is. We get it. I'll hurry. We get that. And we get the right of the utility companies to use these right-of-ways.
I actually have to cut you off at the 3-minute mark.
Oh, no, because I haven't said what I need to say.
I really have to cut you off at the 3-minute mark to play fair. But you did email.
I did.
You did. I did get it. The council got it.
You're Karen. You're
yes.
the Karen that did.
And the city manager got it, and Audrey Starcy got it. So we hear you. You are not a lone voice crying in the wilderness. You have a chorus, a Greek chorus of tragedy people that are standing up and wailing also.
Right.
So trust me when I say that you are not alone in this and that we hear you.
Okay. Restoration is not the solution here. Not causing the damage in the first place. That's the solution. And if we don't act upon it quickly, it's too late. too late. So please, thank you.
Thank you. And now, I don't think Seda is in the room. Steve, is it Abel's son? Absalom, thank you.
I've seen those eyes of concern about my name ever since kindergarten. So I take no offense. And Mary, I'm going to try and back you up as your neighbor from Heritage Hills, okay, regarding Zipley fiber. So I guess I better get going since here I thought I had 20 minutes, but I guess not, huh? Oh, well, no. Anyway, I just want to, she did a great job, and I just want to echo what she has found among the residents there, and same that I've been hearing and finding within Heritage Hills, and actually the extended Sammamish area, if you will, plugging into some of those websites. I think the only thing I would add, and this is not my personal experience, speaking for some residents that I've seen this, they'll go to erect, whatever you call it, an electrical monument, the hub or whatever, that has probably every so many houses, I don't know. And the places I have seen those placed, and people saying that they're not being heard, or they aren't coming out to do anything. I mean, right in the middle of a nice grassy front lawn. And sometimes the response they get from Zipley is, well, you need to put some bushes, flowers around it. My property is an example where you could do that with the old AT&T big electrical box, and it took a huge, what do we call it, green plant, but I have to feel I would be extremely upset if that was the solution. I've been here now 20-some years in Heritage Hills. We've got beautiful communities here. And if I've got a concern of any, it's kind of, to you all, the city, or if it's the Public Works Department, engineering, what kind of oversight, monitoring can we, expect to kind of, help govern this? Because there doesn't seem to be much government. And the last thing I want to make sure I got in here, I wrote a letter to Zipley Management, laid it out. It was really a very nice request. Hey, I'd like to talk to you. Please come and talk to me about or phone me about your installation and your restoration plans. And that was December 3rd. I have not been contacted since then. I understand holidays, everything, but boy, that's pretty bad follow-up if you want to, as a business, want to be good neighbors with your people in Sammamish. Okay.
Very sorry.
You get 4 seconds back.
All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And we've got Nancy Baer up next.
See how fast I can talk. Thank you very much. I'm Nancy Baer, Sammamish residents. Congratulations to our new wonderful mayor and deputy mayor. Let's continue. Let's be proactive and not reactive. I think the city has only seen a fraction of what's been happening. Do I need to get close? Can I restart my time then? I'm very short. How do I do this? See if does this work? Okay, so to pick up on what commission applicant said, what is our vision, what is our policy? And I'm here also to speak to the damage that's been happening, Zipley has been doing in Timberline and in Sammamish, and how they are not meeting the requirements of the permits that the city of Sammamish granted them. Also, we have a vision of the city, we have ordinances, we have requirements for these permits. And speaking to the issue of mature trees, I'm also a master gardener. So I would like to request that the city of Sammamish review Zipley's permits, especially in timberline neighborhoods. Zipley has not met the requirements. Many residents have received no notification. And the city has the capacity to suspend if it's supporting material. The damages that have been happening, again, to this point, there are damages that cannot be rectified. So how are you going to measure a 30-day time period to rectify? We understand right of way. I've lived here quite a long time, very involved with the working towards the establishment of our own city. I used to go to the county for this kind of thing. And we have the beauty of just a few places here that has actually retained some trees. And this will be the first time in my residency where I can see just irreparable damage happening at rapid speed. So even the discussions that's been brought to the city, they're plowing through with groups that cannot communicate to them, that will not make any modifications at the moment. Good luck if you're not home. That's a whole nother thing. So I'm coming in 34 minutes. I can't believe, what did I leave out? You don't ask questions in these time periods, so I will just thank you abundantly. But I know every one of the wonderful people here. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting our sitting manager, who's not looking at me. And it's very nice to finally meet you. And I'd like to see that we can work with all the parties here in a proactive fashion. As to Zipley, if they're looking to sell services to a community, they are initiating a job where a community is disinterested in purchasing those services because of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone that's registered online?
We have 2 residents that pre-registered. If you'd like to give public comment, please raise your hand. Okay. Promoting Mary Wichter. All right, Mary, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, City Council. Mary Wichter, been in Sammamish 24 years. Just wanted to say I thought it was really great that you gave everybody 5 minutes who got to speak toward their interest in board positions. A lot of interesting people, a lot of really good ideas and energy, so it was very worthwhile, even though it takes time. And also anybody who is trying for those positions and didn't make it, you can always join public comment. If you get 3 minutes at City Council, you get 3 minutes on non-agenda at the Planning Commission, you get 7 minutes if it's an agenda topic. It's usually at the end of the meeting, but people can go and give input, and all the other commissions also allow it as well. I did want to just say a few things. With the most recent storm with the bomb cyclone on November 19th, it became really apparent that if you don't have utilities underground, you can have a lot of outages. A long-term solution is putting utilities underground. The problem with that is it's highly expensive, and you either going to have cables that get knocked down, or I remember when I first moved here, there were actually trees all around the power stations. And after a few years of snowstorms and the trees falling on the power station, they cut down the trees all the way around the power station, which made it a lot more accessible. So there are going to be cables and things put down, but I do believe if people are being disrupted, that restoration should happen. It should happen not over a long time because we're in the rainy season, and they should try to avoid what they can with regard to trees and things. I've also seen utilities, and this isn't just Zipley Fiber, this is PSE, isn't so bad. Comcast, Frontier, Verizon, a lot of times they'll put their connectivity right in the middle of a stormwater ditch that carries water, or the ditch will get filled in, or the soils will be left really soft from that, or even just the survey markers put in. So it is important to do that. And I think the city's permitting process actually has like a public agency exemption. So I don't know how it gets controlled, but I think all the things people are bringing up is important. And then I just wanted to speak last to affordable housing, since Sammamish has a mix of 85% single-family homes that are big and large usually, unless they're older, and only 15% other types, including about 2,000, maybe 3,000 multifamilies in the whole city. We do need people to build affordable housing, so the people that are building it shouldn't pay the fee. The in-lieu fee, if there's people doing bonus parcel projects that it might make a difference for, maybe that could go toward them if they're active or need them, and then it could go to Arch. Otherwise, I think going to Arch. And then just on the math, if you have a 3,000 square foot home, it paying $34.45, it's about $103,000. When you have 10 of those, it's $10 million, and when you have 10 of those, it becomes 100 units for about $100 million. So thank you for the meeting tonight and letting us speak, and I hope that you're having a good New Year.
Thank you, Mary.
We have one other pre-registered commenter. Please raise your hand if you'd like to give public comment. Okay, he's not raised his hand. So that's all for public comment.
Was it Paul? We gotta know. It was Paul. Okay.
Okay, council, we have like 3 minutes. Can we go to the manager's report really quickly?
It'll be very, very brief. Just a quick reminder, Monday is honoring Dr. Martin Luther King. City Hall is closed in observance. There is a volunteer event that day. You can go to our city website under volunteer events and find registration for that event. And with that, Mayor, back to you.
And council, any quick reports? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I have one.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was still gonna, but please.
I have a Board of Health meeting on Thursday, and I'll send out the agenda.
Anything? Going once, twice? Motion
Move to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Actually, we don't need that.
Yeah.